OTB AM.
With Gillette, your Mo supported our frontline workers this Movember.
7:30, very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTB AM. It's Ger Eoin with you all the way through until 10 a.m. this morning, and we have a very, very busy show lined up for you. We're going to be talking Champions League and everything else that you want about football, and we're talking some Gaelic football with Paddy Christie, who's in the backroom team of the Tipperary footballers. In the meantime, and good morning to you. How the hell are you? It's technically the 1st of December. It is 100%, not just technically. Accidental Partridge, how are you?
And a brand new elf on the shelf right behind you, which is a new development.
You've only noticed this now, but he's been there all week.
Oh, right, okay. Yes, I've only paid attention today. And also a nice little Christmas tree, which seems to be now out of shot. It's only when you're fully on camera that we get to see our beautiful wooden Christmas tree, which is just giving me so much Christmas joy right now, and it's definitely not the saddest Christmas tree I've ever seen.
Well, I mean, when we got it was fine, but it's covered in like the dust of 4 years now. So
there is probably COVID in that dust, and you should probably get your hands off it immediately and quarantine for a long, long time.
Off camera is I should really show you someday what's off camera. It's very messy. Since you're not here, I've kind of really let the place go. You know, it's like your family goes away for the weekend, and like you have to rush around cleaning up very, very quickly for the last 10 minutes just before they arrive. Anyway, I understand that you're very upset by the performance of Ollie Watkins last night, and you're not a Villa fan. So what's going on?
Oh, Ger, I thought I'd got over the stage of my life where I cared about the fortunes of my fantasy football team because A, it doesn't actually matter, and B, there is nothing more boring than telling somebody else about the fortunes of your fantasy football team. But what am I going to do this morning, everybody? I'm going to tell you about the fortunes of my fantasy football team. And I think I speak for a lot of people this year where not a lot of us have much of a life, so a lot of us are spending a lot of time looking into how our fantasy football team can do a little bit better. A couple of weeks ago, I was like, Patrick Bamford, not for me. Callum Wilson, not for me. Going to be a little bit edgy here. Aston Villa have good fixtures. Ollie Watkins, get in my team. It looked good last night. Trezeguet messed up that opportunity that he put on a plate for him. And then, whatever it was, 20 minutes later, Trezeguet goes down. Penalty Aston Villa. I'm like, this is it. This decision has totally paid off. And then Sky Sports put up that graphic and it was like, hold on a minute. Ollie Watkins seems to be on spot kicks here, despite the fact that he's not very good at penalty kicks. And lo and behold, what happened? Crossbar, boom, heartbreak, almost punched my television in. 20 minutes later again, offside by the length of his armpit. And I all of a sudden just didn't want to wake up this morning. How can you walk away from a game like FPL for 7 years? It's been 7 years since I've paid this much attention to it, and it just drags you right back into the point where you're cursing an Aston Villa striker on a Tuesday morning. This shouldn't be the life that we choose to lead. But I'm looking at the figures. There are well over 7 million managers this year. It's going to cross 8 million managers for the first time ever. I'm sure lockdown is playing a part in it, and I'm pretty sure it's harder to score relatively good scores this year because everybody is paying so much attention. And I'm sure I'm not alone this morning in cursing Watkins' luck last night.
Yeah, just when I thought I was out, they stuck me back in.
Oh, and to be an Aston Villa fan, like I just got I'm saying this as if I'm like a Liverpool fan or something, as if I've had like many glories to go on over the last couple of years. But just that little taste of how Aston Villa might treat you last night was not a good feeling. They are brilliant to watch at times, but unbelievably frustrating.
The Grealish goal was obviously worth watching, but the rest of it is happiness is a mere episode in a general drama of pain, or whatever that quote is that I've managed to mangle there. Look, it's what it is. You become very phlegmatic, almost zen, when it comes to the rest of your life. It's like, hey, look, you know, there are occasionally going to be triumphs. Don't get too carried away. Oh, we've won a penalty late in the game. Even we couldn't stuff this up. I wonder what it's like to actually support a team who always scores penalties. The bit where it's like, you know that it's going to be fine. It's just, I don't have that. I really don't have that. But the other thing that I want to talk to you about, because you're right, it's unbelievably boring listening to somebody talking about their fantasy. It's really the most boring thing in the world. It's like, it's crushingly dull. But anyway, look, it's a good way to start the show, right? I'm sure other people out there have had a fairly similar experience. Particularly, is your general thesis is because lockdown has happened and the world has gone to pot and you've literally nothing to do with your time in life? Is that it?
Yeah, I took a year out after finishing secondary school, and that was the last time. That was the only time I did extraordinarily well in fantasy football. And it's no surprise that, I was 17 for a lot of that year. I couldn't go out drinking all the time. There was nothing else to do except pour all my efforts into getting a good FPL rank. I'm back in that place right now. Life has progressed magnificently well for me. I'm sure you'll appreciate.
Yeah, and look, fair play to you. You're doing really well in fantasy. Congratulations. The other thing that we're going to talk about is the other most boring thing in the world that people talk about, and it's the fixtures conundrum. However, there's a reason for it that we're doing it today, and that's because Kevin McStay has written about the good old days, and these are the good old days, and we should welcome back, I'm paraphrasing here obviously, we should welcome back the good old days. Let's throw a party and have a parade because Knockout Championship football is back, and it now appears as if there's a juggernaut gathering momentum where suddenly we're going to have the same championship that we had in 98, 97. When was the last time? Was it 98, 99? Was that the last time we had no qualifiers?
2000.
2000. We're back. We're back to the good old days of the 70s and 80s and 90s and how god awful that was. So tell me, you think this is nonsense?
Oh, it's such a bad idea. Like, I know we've spoken about this a little bit over the last few weeks, but it does seem, as you say, that this is starting to build a little bit of a head of steam here, that people who know a hell of a lot about GAA and how it works are suggesting that we do go back to that sort of championship, or at least they're saying that it's some sort of solution. And if it's not that, then at least let's go back to the way it was 3 years ago, where you just have your regular qualifiers. And I just don't think this is a good idea whatsoever. I can't believe I'm feeling this morning, but there's a line in McStay's column that says there is a hype to the Super 8s and qualifiers that is just nonsense. And I felt personally insulted by this line. I know I shouldn't. I know that the Super 8s is clearly a flawed concept, but I can't get away from the fact that the Super 8s has allowed me to feel something over the last couple of years. I accept 100%, first of all, here, that it is the preserve of the elite. There has to be so much more done for the teams that aren't in the top 5 or 6 in the country. I'm very fortunate that I follow the fortunes of Kerry football every year, and what that has brought to the elite counties has actually been a really vibrant summer over the last couple of years. The qualifiers bring something similar, and Knockout Championship does not deliver this. The routine for a team like Cork or Kerry in a regular summer would be a trip to Killarney, then a trip to Croke Park, then another trip to Croke Park, then another trip to Croke Park. With the Super 8s, even just last year, we had this incredible occasion between Kerry and Mayo in Killarney, in the hottest day I can ever remember in Killarney. Of course, it was a one-sided affair, but a brilliant occasion. I remember being up in Clonus the previous year for that late David Clifford goal, in Clonus for a championship match that Kerry were playing in. Very novel, and it was fantastic. Like, I accept that this should not be just for a very select few counties. It should be for everybody, and more needs to be done on that front. But I really think that the Super 8s have been plundered and like absolutely hammered over the last couple of years as this inherently flawed concept, which is wrong. I totally disagree with that. The reason why the Super 8s has been bad over the last couple of years is because there has been guaranteed dead rubbers. The reason why there have been guaranteed dead rubbers is there have been a guaranteed number one team in one of those groups for the last 2 years. There are 3 teams in Gaelic football. There is Dublin in a tier of their own, there is a second tier, and there is a third tier. Dublin in a tier of their own will always win their Super 8s group in the current format. That is why the Super 8s have looked flawed, is because an entire half of it is predetermined because one team is so much better than the rest. I actually think the format gets unfairly criticised for that. And I don't know, I was just reading it this morning, thinking to myself, I shouldn't be sitting here feeling defensive of the Super 8s, but I was, because there have been great memories over the last couple of years. And I think we're actually at a really interesting crossroads now of professionalism versus amateurism. Do we want to go back to the days where it's one and done in the summer and you're out in the middle of May or June and that's it, done after your one championship match, pack your bags, go back to the day job and just focus on that for the rest of the year? Maybe that's what we want. But I was under the impression that we wanted to give our elite sports people something better, something more meaningful to work towards over the course of the best months in Ireland's year, where that is more games, less training. And I don't know, like I see the appeal to why Knockout Championship is getting people excited, but let's not get this mixed up with what the real thing is here. The real reason people are excited about this format is because Tipperary are Munster champions and Cavan are Ulster champions. This has nothing to do with the format. This idea that, knockout football is the reason why this happened, That's totally misplaced. The reason why Tipperary and Cavan are champions of their provinces is because of 2020. If you went into a non-backdoor format next year, do you really think Kerry would go into a Munster Championship as undercooked as they were? Do you really think Tyrone and Donegal won't divvy up most of the next decade's Ulster Championships between them? Regardless of what the format was this year, Cavan and Tipperary probably still would have won. It was a weird year, and it was a brilliant year and a magical year. Don't be looking at the formats as the reason why it's happened.
Yeah, all right, look, that's fair enough. It's 7:41. I'm sure people will have views on that. We'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the number. So our coming up will be, that's the second hour. So David Meyler's first, 7:45. He's coming in 3 or 4 minutes' time. Talking Gaelic football, Paddy Christie and Kieran Donaghy from 8:05. Kieran Donaghy, 8:30. Paddy Christie. It's John Duggan at 8:50. The Irish women's national team, we're talking about their game against Germany tonight. And then it is the end of Movember because it is the start of December. And so, I mean, we'll see. We'll see exactly what's going to happen. And then Ron O'Gara and Keith Water in from 9:30. Now, Phil Egan is here with us this morning to talk to us about what's happening in the world. Phil, where are we starting?
We're going to start with that big game at Tallaght Stadium tonight. The Republic of Ireland are going to have to cause a massive upset, you feel, to reach the European Championship playoffs. And obviously, they could actually lose tonight and still go through, but I mean, you're depending on Ukraine to lose at home to Montenegro. Montenegro have scored 1 goal in the campaign. Now, the only thing it was against Ukraine, but Ukraine are going to beat Montenegro, which means Ireland are going to have to beat Germany, the number 2 ranked team in the world. Both games kick off at 5 o'clock, and Vera Pauw has asked for the pitch at Tallaght Stadium to be made a bit narrower, so they're trying everything they can just to make things a bit more difficult for the Germans. Fulham are out of the relegation zone in the Premier League thanks to a 2-1 win away to Leicester. Leicester could have joined Tottenham at the top of the Premier League, but Fulham picked up their 2nd win of the season. That's not even the big story from the Premier League because once again VAR is in the headlines. West Ham up to 5th place. What a job David Moyes is doing. It seems playing without fans is actually suiting David Moyes and West Ham. But
the West Ham way.
Absolutely. They beat Villa 2-1 at the London Stadium. Injury time, Ollie Watkins scored. Now, this is Ollie Watkins who had missed a penalty a few minutes before that, smashed it off the crossbar. But then the goal was disallowed for offside. The lines were out, and I know Villa boss Dean Smith was unhappy that he felt Ogbonna had fouled Watkins. The reason Watkins was offside was because he was trying to wrestle his way away from the defender, and a part of his body, which can't actually score a goal, was given offside. So here we are again talking about the technology which was meant to make the game that bit easier to watch. But yeah, VAR. And it'll be in play this evening again in the Champions League. But I find when you watch the Champions League, it doesn't seem to be as prominent. Maybe it has something to do with the Premier League officiating. But Liverpool have a chance to book their place in the last 16 of the Champions League tonight. They will do so if they avoid defeat to Ajax at Anfield. Manchester City are already into the last 16. They're away to Porto. Those games both underway at 8 o'clock. The draw for the 3rd round of the FA Cup was made last night, and what a draw for Marine. The Northern Premier League side will play Tottenham in the 3rd round. They're in the 8th tier, the lowest ranked club left in this season's competition. The former club of Jason McAteer, famously Bolton, paid Marine a couple £100, I think maybe £500, and they gave them a bag of footballs to get Jason McAteer's transfer done to Bolton, and the rest is history. Holders Arsenal begin their campaign at home to Newcastle, and then you've got Aston Villa against Liverpool in an all Premier League clash as well. Those games will be played over the weekend of the 8th of January. Wolves striker Raúl Jiménez says he hopes to return to the pitch soon. He underwent surgery on Sunday after suffering a fractured skull against Arsenal. Now, concussion in football dominates the back pages this morning, and it comes to light after that incident between David Luiz and Raúl Jiménez. Obviously, Luiz played on. He was subsequently taken off at half-time, but there's even that famous picture of England defender Terry Butcher from the 1990 World Cup with the blood around the bandage, and he's actually said he was a fool for continuing to play. And just finally, in rugby, Munster have 7 wins from 7 in the Pro 14. They beat Zebre 52-3 at Thomond Park last night.
Close one.
Yeah, well,
tough work. Hard sledding.
8 tries. Ulster top of Conference A, 43-14 win away to Edinburgh. Hooker John Andrew scored a hat-trick of tries for Ulster in that game.
Zebre really doing their bit to hold up the argument for keeping Italy in the Six Nations and all that stuff that's going on. Good stuff, Phil. Thanks very much for that. It's 7:45 a.m. this morning. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We'll be getting to David Meyler in just a second to talk about the Champions League action. Is VAR something that everybody's just tired of talking about, and is something going to happen, do you think, Owen, or is it actually something that they're just going to improve?
It's probably something that they're going to improve a little bit, that they could get to a stage where this offside detection changes a little bit, where if it is undetectable to the naked eye, the fact that, say, Ollie Watkins has his arm ahead of Koufal's arm last night, then actually the goal will stand. That if it's not a clear and obvious thing from a linesman's perspective, then play on, ref, so to speak. That is something that they've done in a couple of countries in Europe, as far as I understand, that they don't get the lines out, basically, and slow the whole thing down and bog it down into the minutiae of it. And that could be a way forward. I don't think they're going to get rid of VAR at this point. It is a very boring conversation that everybody's sick of chatting about at this point, but it just gets more and more frustrating as time goes on, and you can really empathise with Dean Smith last night. I think the conversation, though, tends to flare up a little bit more in those sorts of situations where Aston Villa will feel that they should have got something from the game last night, and they would be right to think that, and there's a sort of sense of injustice about the decision.
Villa haven't had a draw yet this season, and there's that constant fear that the death spiral is only a couple of successive defeats away. It's like that's what it's been like as a lifelong Aston Villa fan. You're only ever 2 or 3 defeats away from the death spiral, and that's why stuff like this kind of matters a lot. The difference between no points and defeat, and everybody travelling in their cars and individually back up the road to Birmingham last night versus a last-minute equaliser. The confidence that they get from that actually really matters. And I don't think Villa are going to go down. They're level on points at Manchester City at the moment, but they can get sucked in pretty easily. I don't think they will either.
They could. It's astonishing if they did at this point, but there would probably be an alteration. Like, in fairness, they did change the handball thing after the first couple of weeks of the season, when there was too many penalties being given. They changed that pretty instantaneously. We're probably going to reach a point where it's going to have to be reevaluated. It's not at the level that the handballs were after 2 or 3 games of the season, but at the end of this year, they probably need to reevaluate it. VAR is here to stay, but just the identification of that offside rule is farcical, to be honest with you. Like, it every single time it happens, and every single time you see the little dotted lines come out, you know that something bad is going to happen, and you know that people aren't going to be happy with it, and it's unanimous at this point.
Yeah, and look, I think it doesn't help that the technology looks like it's computer-aided design from the 1980s, as opposed to, slick and very obvious, and like there should be some kind of 3D thing where they swoop in and go, oh, look, you can clearly see here, but they don't have that. They have like somebody slowly, badly drawing the type of lines that you would do if you gave your granny the computer for a while and said, here, decide who's offside there. I think it would help if they improve those things. Anyway, we'd love to hear from you this morning. 0879 180 180 is the number. Are you ready for the Champions League to come back tonight, Owen? Are you excited about the fact that the football fixtures just keep coming thick and fast?
Definitely. Champions League, the best competition in the world, arguably. There's no reason not to be buzzing for it, especially a fixture like Liverpool versus Ajax. And if Liverpool get the business done tonight against Ajax, well, Jurgen Klopp will be turning around saying, thank you, BT Sport, for allowing us to get our weekend fixture over and done with by 2:30 on a Saturday afternoon. You really are great guys. That allowed us those extra few hours to rest up for a Tuesday evening fixture against Ajax. Is he going to turn around and thank BT Sport after? That's the thing I'm looking out for. Every little thing that happens to Liverpool at this point is kind of interesting. Who starts the team sheet, from defence to attack, who will go down injured, who will actually survive 90 minutes. These are all interesting facets to Liverpool at the moment, and you've got a manager who is getting tetchier and tetchier by the day, and it's becoming a very interesting storyline. You think domestically this year you could be in for a really interesting title race if their fitness troubles don't ease up, unfortunately. Not to wish for injuries or anything like that, but because of a shoestring squad, it has lessened the gap between themselves and the rest this year, and you could, in your wildest dreams, potentially have a 3-horse race this year, which would be fantastic.
West Ham.
You want Liverpool to... Yeah, West Ham, Villa and Liverpool would be the 3.
Yeah. I think it's a good point. What was your take on the BT Sport interview at the weekend? Like, you can see why Jurgen Klopp is so annoyed. Everybody has to
look after their own players. And doing a little bit of reading into it as well, they're up at 7:30 on a Saturday morning. Their sports scientists are telling them that lack of sleep on a Saturday morning is affecting their recovery. So they actually have some empirical evidence to suggest that the early kickoff is affecting them. But this is the price of success. If you're a Liverpool Football Club, regardless of whether or not you're Premier League champions, chances are if you're slated for a Saturday fixture, you are going to be picked for the 12:30 because that is a prime television slot. Chances are Diogo Jota was bought with some of the television money. It's as simple as that. And if you're going to accept that television money, you've got to accept the fact that it's going to come with a 12:30 kickoff fairly regularly. The only other way around this is not playing on a Saturday, and that means not playing on a Tuesday in the Champions League, which can't happen because you're a Champions League club. So they're stuck in this because they are a Liverpool Football Club and they are a successful club. I can see why Klopp is pissed off. I would be too if all my players were dropping like flies. But I don't think he really has a leg to stand on when it comes to the injustices of it all. Like, you can be annoyed with things, but not say that you were being screwed over royally, because I don't necessarily think that's the case whatsoever. And I think fair play to Des Kelly for standing his ground. It was one of those weird moments where you thought to yourself, I can see where this guy's coming from and I can see where this guy's coming from.
Yeah, it was. It definitely did seem like Klopp moved off his point as soon as he possibly could, because he walked himself down into the corners. What's going on? There's walls on both sides of me. Oh, okay. Oh, that other thing over there, I'm going to go. You're right. Yeah, good point. I'm glad you brought that up. But poor Chris Wilder must have been feeling like, hang on a second, what did I do? What? Why you bring me into this?
Yeah, Wilder's obviously decided to be brave enough to say that, no, we don't want 5 subs at this point. But let's not forget that the whole conversation around 5 subs was a non-topic at the end of last season. When teams are bringing on their 4th and 5th sub, you had the likes of Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville on Sky saying that this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why are we having 5 subs? This needs to be voted out. So blame Carragher and Neville, Jurgen Klopp, because their voice is as important as Chris Wilder's. Your interview is what everybody's talking about at the weekend, and in fairness, that is one of the points that I disagree with Des Kelly with a little bit, is that Jurgen Klopp saying something on TV is pretty powerful. It doesn't just need to be your CEO saying it.
No, 100%.
The manager can make a big point on TV too.
Yeah, far better actually than it happening in the boardroom where nobody gets to see what's happened. David Meyler, good morning to you. How you keeping?
Good morning.
Liverpool suddenly have a big game tonight in a situation where that group was there and wrapped up, and we all know what happened. Obviously, they got beaten last time out by Atalanta. But they've kind of walked themselves into... maybe they like this. Maybe they like a little bit of jeopardy in the last couple of rounds of the Champions League, and that's what he needs to get everybody fired up.
No, this certainly, obviously, the disappointing result against Atlanta opens the group up. Liverpool obviously being 2 points clear, the two of them. Obviously, they play Ajax tonight, who, are in a good form in the league. Albeit, I know that they're very dominant in the Eredivisie over the last few years. But if they were to lose tonight, look, they play FC Michelin next. But if they were to lose, then you'd expect Atlanta to beat them, and then it kind of just opens it all up a little bit. So it's an important game, and look, Jurgen is missing a lot of players, but they've got to somehow find a way to get 11 players on the pitch, kind of somewhat organised, and get a result. Yeah.
What level of performance do you expect from Liverpool, having seen them over the last couple of games tonight?
There's just something special with Liverpool in the Champions League. So I still expect whatever team he decides to, go with. Obviously, probably the big loss for them at the moment now would have been Milner, kind of that versatile player who could have played in a number of different positions. It's just a case of who's you going to play at right back tonight. Obviously, the young boy Nico Williams went off at half-time, so that would be an interesting call from him. But I still expect Liverpool to turn up. If you look even at the Brighton, I know they'll be disappointed with the way the game, finished out, but for him to, bring Salah off after the hour mark and then obviously bring Mane on, you expect, two of them to start. He'll still have the firepower up top, so I'll still be expecting Liverpool to be all kind of, guns blazing and get a result.
David, when you were playing the Premier League coming up against Champions League teams at the weekend, was there a noticeable fatigue about them, that you kind of felt that they had played midweek as well, that they were closer to the red, as Liverpool officials have said themselves this week?
It's probably slightly different now with the way the games are, and obviously the fixture's a lot more compact. They're kind of, it's almost a bit closer to the Championship in the sense of the Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, and the intensity of the games. Because the Premier League, sometimes, the Champions League games wouldn't be as, frequent. They kind of play, just before the internationals, and then there's kind of a break until, the new year. At this moment, obviously with the pandemic and everything, the game's kind of cramped in more. But certainly when you play the Champions League team away, when they were at home, you didn't really notice that they were in the red. They just keep the ball, they knock it round, and they have so much firepower and so many good players that they still make it very difficult. Of course, if you're at home, you do kind of fancy yourself. If you do, like, as we touched on the other day, I was on, Saturday talking about the early kickoff, you do think, like, maybe we can catch them up. Maybe they're tired from their long trip if they've been away, in Russia or one of those countries. You did fancy yourselves.
It's funny.
That's interesting.
Yeah, go on.
Well, it's just that point. Like, I mean, that philosophy around actually being able to target a team in that position, because, say, going to Anfield in normal times or whatever like that, it's probably one of those games that you chalk down as a long shot of actually getting something from this game. But the way the fixtures pile up this year in particular, you definitely feel that they're in the shop window. And then on top of that, you've got the way Liverpool play, that it's such a high-octane running style and a pressing style that if they are closer to the red zone, there is going to be a noticeable drop-off in their performance.
No, 100%. I think certainly with the way Liverpool play and the intensity that they try to bring to every game, that it's no surprise. Obviously, of course, if you looked at a couple of the injuries that they've had, whether it be Virgil's tackle, obviously Thiago, who Jurgen spoke about, is due back probably at the start of January. Joe Gomez, of course, was unfortunate when he was away with England. A lot of the other injuries have been muscle injuries, which will be from the intensity that Liverpool try and play with. So it's the hardest thing for them is, I know you're talking about the red zone. I've heard this, the green and the amber, how they rate the players on how much their loads are, how much they've done in training. But if you look at it, they played Saturday morning, they'll have had a recovery day, Sunday, where the whole team would have, had a down day more or less. Monday, which is yesterday, they'll have done a tactical session. They wouldn't have done a lot on the pitch. So they're not getting much into the legs. It's just how quickly that body can recover. And, for the fact that they're playing Ajax at home would be a big encouragement in the sense that, this morning, players would have been able to rest, that they can stay in bed longer. And then, of course, you don't have that travelling over to Ajax. So they should be, you'd expect them to be all right. I'd expect them to still turn up, put in a good performance. They've still got a lot of very good players, but it'll be interesting.
The bit where you said, obviously the Champions League, it's always special for Liverpool. Part of that is the fact that there's fans there. They haven't really missed that much of a beat without the fans so far. Like, is the music enough of an inspiration for them? The fact that they'll walk out and the Champions League anthem gets played, like, how do they signify in their own heads that this is different?
Look, that's kind of, we often see, pundits and whatever they're talking about. You've got to be able to bring that intensity, that desire. I think certainly Liverpool have been able to do that. Of course, Anfield is, for any player going there, it's a special occasion because it's one of those unique stadiums in the world, and it's one you look forward to. I've played at Anfield many times where you just get kind of overwhelmed by the crowd. The way the players have played. I think it was James Milner spoke not so long ago how Liverpool have maintained that intensity at Anfield without the fans. Of course, European nights and at Anfield are special, but again, it's now become the norm without the fans, that the players are used to it. So, Liverpool, albeit they've had a couple of off games where they've not performed well, but they'll still be able to bring that level of intensity. And I'm sure Jurgen will be drumming that into them, that if he can get a result tonight, I think if they get a point, then that should do them really. But then when it comes, if they were to get that result and they play FC Michelin next week, then he has the opportunity to rest players where he can then shift his squad around and give fellas that, who are in the red, as they say, those, added time to rest.
It does seem, David, that we're going to get something resembling a title race this year in the Premier League. Maybe that's optimistic thinking, but would Liverpool have seen much in the Chelsea-Spurs game on Sunday to give them cause for concern that they will have to go toe-to-toe all the way till the end of the season?
Well, I think you have to give them respect because they're level on points, and I think Tottenham showed that with the result against Man City. Even to a degree, their performance against Chelsea showed their resilience that, they weren't going to concede in the sense that, we're going to be solid and we're going to try and nick one, which they did against City. But it's still early days. There's 28 games left, so it's going to be a long season. I expect Liverpool will still be looking over their shoulders at Man City. I think Man City will still see themselves in it. Chelsea, of course, after that result, will fancy themselves to, I think there will be probably 3-4 teams thinking, we can win this. So it's going to be tough in the sense that, you can't probably nail down one team. I still expect Liverpool and Man City to be 1 and 2. But there's still a lot of football to be played. And if they don't get players back or able to, Liverpool last season were obviously able to, go on that massive run where they could, pick up, result after result after result. If they can't do that and they keep stop starting, then it's going to make it very difficult for them.
And the interesting thing is that the only other team really who you could see putting in a run like that is Manchester City, as you say. That result on Saturday will have given them a lot of encouragement. The fact that they actually can go out and score 5 goals. They can do their regular results against Burnley on a regular Saturday afternoon. So how much is that going to be sustainable in your view over the next couple of weeks that actually the floodgates have now opened on this City season?
Well, I don't think City could have, for the level we've seen Man City over the last few years, maybe not so much last season, but certainly last Saturday against Burnley was kind of one of them where you thought, okay, Man City are back. Like they went, I know it was 3-0 after, 30, 40 minutes. And everybody was just kind of like, okay, it's just Man City. Like they're just kind of doing what they do. They've not been fantastic. They've not been able to hit a level of consistency, over the, this season. So for them to put in a result like that, of course, they play tonight. They're well through in their group. They're safe. So it's a chance for, Pep Guardiola to rotate his side. Man City are probably the team at the moment who are still capable, would be my favourites, and who are capable of putting together 6, 7, 8 games in a row of winning them. So yeah, it's going to be so difficult, for all the teams that, City do have, once they get kind of, Aguero back, fully fit and available, they do have a massive squad where they can afford to chop and change. I think that's been one of Pep's biggest problems, in my opinion, that he's rotated his squad so much that if you looked at Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, Manchester United, you could more or less pick the 1 to 11. You kind of know what their strongest 11 is. With Man City, you don't. I think, there's a case for Mahrez, of course. Look, he fantastic hat-trick at the weekend, but you have a case that you could start Bernardo Silva over him. And then, you've got Sterling but then even in midfield, it's kind of chopping and changes. You can never pick. They have so many good players, but you can't nail down a 1 to 11. And look, I play fantasy football, and we always have this joke that you never know. There's the Pep Guardiola rotation that just seems to knock you because you think such and such player is going to play, but then he just changes the team. So they do have a unique squad, and they've got a vast amount of talent, but what can they do, to get that kind of established 1 to 11 that can kick into form and go on a run of wins?
It's going to be interesting to see.
Got screwed by João Cancelo this week. Just on a final point, that Kevin De Bruyne's position, David, this year, it has actually been, you talk about different combinations in that team, that has actually resulted in different roles for Kevin De Bruyne at times in that midfield. Did we see the best version of him and the best position for him finally on Saturday?
Look, I think wherever you play Kevin De Bruyne, look, he's a wonderful player. He's fantastic. His passing range is exceptional. The positions he picks up, drifting off onto the wings, whipping balls in, his assists, getting forward for goals, everything. I think if you played him as a holding midfielder, a box-to-box midfielder, or a number 10, it wouldn't matter. Kevin De Bruyne's impact on a game is unbelievable. So the further they can get him forward with that cover in midfield, the better, the more chances they'll create. Certainly if Pep has players available, then, you want Kevin De Bruyne further forward because of what he can do.
All right, David, good stuff. Thanks a million this morning. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
It's 4 minutes past 8 here on OTB AM. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Kieran Donaghy and Paddy Christie this hour. Stay tuned.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
We all talk about what might happen and our hopes and dreams for the day, but that's not real life.
Dadcast Tuesdays from 3 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio. Tune in on the OTB Sports app.
Follow the leader, The Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, the world's best-selling plug-in hybrid, is now available with 0% finance and a free home charge point worth €800. Leading the charge in plug-in hybrid technology, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Book a test drive at your local dealer today. Mitsubishi, drive your ambition. Terms and conditions apply. See mitsubishimotors.ie. Lending criteria applies. This is a hire purchase agreement provided by Bank of Ireland Finance.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, your Mo supported our frontline workers this Movember.
OTB AM.
At 5 minutes past 8 this morning, here's what's on the homepage of otbsports.com. Neil Lennon deserves a chance to turn things around at Celtic. That's the views of Pat Nevin. Galway's defence and Kilkenny's intensity sees them through to All-Ireland. That is obviously the Camogie review at the weekend. Waterford out Kilkenny, while Limerick can cement legacy. That's the hurling review. And Marine are going to host Spurs in the FA Cup. That's the romance of the FA Cup. Front page of the Irish Times, we've already spoken about this. It's Kevin McStay. Beautiful chaos to end in a Dublin Mayo final. So no surprises from his predictions at the weekend. We'll get the views of Kieran Donaghy in just a moment. The back page of The Guardian is Flying Foxes are brought down to earth by Fulham. We didn't even talk about Fulham. Killing Enda Calls. Enda's basically been backing against Fulham every week and it's been very profitable for him, but he's lost it all because he rolled it up. COVID threat to Newcastle match. That's their fixture against Villa in doubt following further positive tests. The back page of the London Times is Romain Grosjean giving the thumbs up. So his opposable thumbs are still working. And the Daily Mail there, in line of fire. Gunners face flack for letting Louise drive home. Could they not have got an old driver for him? I'm sure they could have stretched to it. There's nothing macho about head injury, says Terry Butcher, with the obviously famously macho picture of him with his bloodied head and playing on through it. And the Irish Sun this morning, submarine. Prem pressure to back head injury replacements in Jan, and Marine is 8th tier. Minnows get Spurs. At 7 minutes past 8, let's say good morning to Kieran Donaghy. Good morning to you, how are you?
Morning, Ger, how are you, bud?
Yeah, we're looking forward to these games this weekend.
Yeah.
Hoping that maybe there'll be something for us in terms of surprise and a shock. Maybe we should start with the Mayo Tipp game. What are you looking, when you're sitting down to analyse this match, what are you looking for?
I suppose I'm looking for, look, Tipperary was a fantastic story, won their first Munster Championship in 85 years, but then I suppose you start dialing it into, this minor team in 2011 beat a very good Dublin team. I think it was 3-9 to 14 points. So you're trying to analyse, there's a lot of winners in that group that have a taste of All-Ireland and they'd love to try and get back to a final. So, where can they hurt? Mayo is a big one for this Tipperary group, and look, obviously I think a huge platform that they got against Cork was the middle of the field, and I think the access point, I would say, of Liam Casey, who kicked 2 points against Limerick, who kicked a goal against Clare, and who got 2 points against Cork as well the last day. His rampaging runs around the middle of the field will be crucial to them. Stephen O'Brien was solid against Cork. I think there's actually more in him. I think he can be more dominant. I think he'll have to be more dominant against this Mayo team. He'll have to use that 6'5" frame and his size to be a bully around there and really test the Mayo midfield. And I also think then Colin O'Riordan coming out as your third kind of midfield option, who will pick him up for Mayo, etc., will be huge, because if they win that middle of the field, and considering they went long an awful lot against Cork, and both teams did in the Munster final. I think there was 71% of the kickouts were long, and in the Connacht final, I think 66% of the kickouts were long. So with all that ball coming out to the middle, whoever can dominate the airwaves is a huge part of it, because both teams actually have a fantastic half-back line. If you look at Mayo with Paddy Durcan and Owen McLaughlin and Cohn, and maybe even Keegan might be more out there the next day if he goes and picks up Mikey Quinlivan, even though I think they'll put him on Sweeney. And then obviously you've Maher and Fahy and Robbie Kiley on the half-back line for Tipp. So you've got these two very dynamic half-back lines that love to attack and that love to go down the pitch, but they're no good to you if you're not winning the middle of the field. So whoever can win the middle of the field give that half-back line access to go forward, will have a major bearing on who wins the game, because both teams have lethal forwards inside, as we've seen in the Munster final. Sweeney and Quinlivan had 12 points between them, 6 from play. So that's going to be a huge factor in it. And then you have obviously Cillian O'Connor. And if Mayo can win that access, they can leave Aidan O'Shea inside full forward, which I think has a lot of ramifications for Tipperary if Aidan O'Shea can stay inside. One, Jimmy Feehan is going to have to stay back in there on him. He'd much prefer if Aidan O'Shea leaked out to the middle of the field. He's a natural half-back. He'd go out with him. He'd probably try and run off Aidan as much as he could and get Aidan chasing rather than influencing the game. Whereas if Mayo are winning the access in the middle of the field, Durkin and McLaughlin, these guys are bombing forward. Now you've that danger for Tipperary, which they didn't face at all against Cork. And I was very surprised Cork didn't go with Mark Keane when it clearly wasn't working for them the other way. And when Luke Connolly went off, I thought the game was screaming to build on the confidence that Mark Keane had built with that massive goal against Kerry, and that you go long into him. But, you know, I think if Mayo can put it long into Aidan O'Shea against a guy that's a more natural halfback, even though he's been playing well at fullback, and he's well up for a fight, like he's dogged, Feehan is dogged, he's been around a good few years. So that's going to be a major kind of access point. And then you obviously have the X factor in Colin O'Riordan.
It doesn't feel to me like this is a Tipperary team that are going to be overawed by the occasion, given that so many of them have come through successful underage teams, and it's not like they've come straight from success at underage into success at senior. They've had to claw their way to this point. So I don't see them being a letdown. I can't see them conceding a couple of early goals and throwing the towel in and this being one-way traffic, which means they're going to be in this match. And so all of a sudden we're looking at Mayo and going, okay, so I see the spine of the old stagers who are there, but these young lads, they are as yet unproven despite the high praise that we've seen for them.
Yeah, it may be so. But in fairness, all they can prove is what they've done to date, and what they've done to date has been really strong. So you have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to push on. I think a big one is what they do with Quinlivan and Sweeney, and what Mayo do to counteract those two. I suppose, for me, if I was sitting down in the Tipperary backroom, or if I was sitting down in the Mayo backroom today, and I was looking at the danger men for Tipp, and I was trying to figure out a way that I could really go at them, it would probably be by putting Lee Keegan on Sweeney, and actually absolutely giving him a green light to go and attack as much as possible and bring him away out the pitch and away from goals. You saw against Cork, the dream scenario. He was allowed to stay in. Shanley didn't go forward at all. He was allowed to go over and back across the D. He's lethal when he wins ball. He's lethal on the turn. I don't know how lethal he is at tracking 17, 80 yards after Lee Keegan, and giving Keegan a green light to maybe add to McLaughlin and Paddy Durkin, and telling Stephen Cohen to sit would be a big one for me. And I'd actually possibly look at, I think Quinlivan is their best all-around player, and he's their bit of magic, as we saw super points he got in the Munster final. He's a ball player, you know. He can set up play, he can come on to scores, he can kick frees if you need him to. And that's a huge player that you also have to look at. So maybe an Oisin Mullen on him, and absolutely going the other way as well, and giving him a green light to go. And tell your Chris Barrett and your Cohen, no matter what happens when we get a ball, lads, ye hold the fort, and see if Mayo can get Tipperary dragging Sweeney and Quinlivan back the pitch, tracking and tackling. That even if they just go up there, even if there's a turnover from Mayo, Tipperary don't have that kind of lethal kind of transition game and then hitting Quinlivan and Sweeney. And if Mayo can take that away from them, Cork never posed that threat. So I would say if I was Mayo, that's what I'd be looking at, to try and take the two. How can you make Tipperary's two most lethal players as uncomfortable as possible, and that would be a way that I'd look at it.
For Tipperary, do they just insist to the two lads, if you get picked up, don't go horsing back. You're going to have to hand that responsibility off to somebody else, because if you get exhausted, the game is over.
Yeah, it's perfect answer it's perfect answer, Ger, to be honest with you, but it's just a bit harder to execute, to tell two fellas to not go the way the game has gone, the way both teams are transitioning up and down the pitch. I think it's a little harder just to say to someone not track him, because if you leave Oisin Mullen and Lee Keegan come at 100 miles an hour, through the middle, and it's fine to say, oh, somebody else is supposed to pick them up. When they pop over a point or two, you don't be long seeing Sweeney say, hold on a minute here, no, I'm not having this, and my watching an All-Ireland semi-final, my man's not going kicking 2 or 3 points, and he's kind of, adamant about it.
There was, just on that, right, because there was, Arthur wrote this amazing, wild piece comparing the late stage of Beethoven with the Limerick hurlers, and there was a brilliant bit of analysis of the Limerick hurlers about how their defenders are not selfish in that they don't mind if their man scores a point, but they understand that the need for the greater good means that you're going to have to perform as part of a collective, and so therefore they're not giving up goals. So essentially, if there's a one-on-one situation developing, the selfish defender will stay with his man and leave the goalkeeper one-on-one, because you know that if you go, your man's going to get the pass and he scores the goal and it comes up on your stats, whereas actually, you need Tipperary to be at that point where they trust each other and where they've been in the games where you're handing off Lee Keegan to somebody and the communication is good enough to hand him off, and you're at a point where you trust it, and also that you're not going to get blamed if Lee Keegan finishes with 3 points. That's the bit.
You're 100%. You're 100%, Ger. And look, they have the X factor out there in Colin O'Riordan to, and the legs for him to cover all over the place. Such a dynamic player. My man of the match the last day was targeted with 4 huge kickouts, led on, won each and every one of them clean above everybody in the air. Magnificent kind of athleticism. His passing all day was ridiculous. It was spot on for a guy who hadn't played much football, obviously. Every heads-up play, moving the ball through the lines. You could really see the Aussie rules in them. The minute they get it and they get out into space, it's head up and can I kick? And something that we should be encouraging more and more out of our players, especially on the pitches like Park Queeve and Croke Park, where a bounce pass into the chest, if the forward's out in front, is hard to stop. And defensively, was maybe overlooked in what he did against Cork, where he was, where the level of communication he had, the hands he was getting, the touches, the deflections, getting around people, helping people, as you rightly say, covering for Sweeney and Quinlivan. So that's your perfect world scenario, and that's what you'll be hoping, and that's what Tipperary will be hoping, that Colin O'Riordan is the guy that picks up. But if he's been picked up by Paddy Durkinger, and he's trying to help, and it's difficult. I've been there. I've been the guy inside, not wanting to be out around the middle of the field, but you just have to go in the modern game. Sometimes you can't leave your men outnumbered. It's fine to say somebody else will pick them up, but if somebody else is a man, then there's nobody to pick them up. So it's about realising where you are, and it's about realising the situation in the game. And yes, Sweeney could jog out at some stage and see another Mayo guy back there and then pass him on, and communication is very important in that. But if Sweeney goes out with Keegan and there's nobody around to pass him out to, he can't pass him on to fresh air. He'll have to go with him. So that's where that breaks down, and that's where the forward, the Sweeney or the Quinlivans kind of says, Jesus, you know what? Look, I gotta go. And if Mayo are in that situation, they'll be happy on Sunday evening.
Is there a blueprint, Kieran, for where those players should be at the vast majority of times? Like, I guess if you get into the idea of formations here, it seems that it's 14 men behind the ball without it, and then it's a 2-man full forward line when you have the ball. Is that what every team is playing at the moment, basically?
Yeah, that's what most teams are playing. And I suppose from being at games and covering them with off the ball, and even Sky, you see it from a bird's eye view. Dublin are the best at getting bodies back into the forward line on a turnover. Look, it's well documented that they have the high press, and they showed that against Meath, and it was very effective when they get up in your face and take away options. And a big thing they have is they don't get beat up there, so they don't allow the overlap to happen. If you notice, they always stay that 1.5 yards in front of the guy with the ball, so it's making it hard for him to get his head up. He's worried about taking you on. He's more than likely a defender, and even a full back line defender, which may not be as comfortable on the ball as your guys out the pitch. And they stay that perfect distance away. They never really jump in at the wrong time. A big thing I think that Dublin have mastered, and I think it's so important in the GAA, and it's a big thing in basketball in many respects, is when do you tackle? It's fine to have the gusto to go out and want to tackle and want to get turnovers, but that can actually be silly, and it can actually cost you if you tackle at the wrong area of the pitch, in the wrong position in the pitch, at the wrong time. So knowing where to tackle, knowing how to tackle, knowing what direction you want to push them in, having everybody else tight behind you. Dublin have executed that press phenomenally well, but they're equally adaptable into, if that's beaten or somebody does beat it, they go into this retreat. And we saw it many times during the Laois and Westmeath game, and not so much against Meath. They weren't really needed to go there, but against Meath, they tackled and really pushed up because the scoreboard allowed them to do that. They were up so much earlier on in the game. You can take chances, you can push up, you can go for the juggler. If they get out past you, you're not overly worried because you're so far ahead. Against Westmeath, at one stage, they had all 14 outfield players in behind the 45, and they're equally adaptable at being very dangerous at doing that. But they are the best at getting people from that scenario up to the top end of the pitch. And if you get people up to the top end of the pitch quickly, it gives you that out ball and it allows guys to carry to the middle of the field and try and get their head up. And I saw numerous times Rock against Westmeath. No, in particular, I was at the game in Portlaoise. Rock, Con, Kilkenny, seeing a turnover happen or develop and just turning and sprinting up the pitch and extending the pitch to allow guys space to come into, but also making sure that they have a threat. I remember Pat Shea, when he came in with Kerry, he had a big thing with us: get to the 6-yard box on a turnover. If you're an inside guy and you've gone out and tackled and you get a turnover, get to the 6-yard box, as in get into the small square and then turn and make your run off of that. Or if your man gets lazy as you're going in, give him a shove and push out off him. So look, that is, you know, whether Tipperary have the legs and the fitness to do that to the effect that Dublin have, who are the best at obviously doing it. You saw it with Kerry too as well. At a lot of times, Tony Braston and David Clifford were 60, 70 yards from goal. We'd get a turnover, and it's hard. It's such a hard thing to do when you're back there, because you've tackled and you've worked really hard to get back there, and now you're expected to not only go and get up the pitch, but to then turn around and start getting on ball and start having the legs to do that. That's probably 60, another 60, 120 yards, then a run for a ball. That's 130, 140 yards running flat out, which is not easy.
No, I'd say that was the end of you, was it?
Yeah, exactly. It used to be great, Ger, when the ball used to go over the bar and you used to just kind of have time to even celebrate a pint and then go out and stand in the 21 and then kick it out and turn around and jog back into the square and wait for it to come in. It was
You'd still be
really
doing
enjoyable.
That. You would still be doing that.
Enjoyable.
Yeah. It sounds like you're leaning towards Mayo in a relatively close game, that you just think they've got more than Tipp do at this stage.
I just like, you know, I kind of, it's hard for me to call because I'd like to see both teams win. It'd be a great story for Tipperary. I'd like for this Mayo group to get another crack at the final. And Tipp did have a huge day in the sun. 85 years is remarkable, and them fellas will go down in the annals of Tipperary football, and they will come and they will bring a show, and they will bring energy and gusto, and they're not afraid, these boys. As I said, they've minor, they've under 21 under 21 success, Munster success, and minor All-Ireland success, and you know, you've guys professionally playing down with Sydney who reach for the stars on a constant basis, so they will come. But I think Mayo's bench is something we haven't talked about. Maybe the benches, maybe Mayo have a small bit more on the bench side, and I think it will be tight for a lot of the game. And I think Mayo by 3 or 4, just with their kind of experience and their heads, they're experienced. A few old guys around there will try and steer this Mayo team to a win and have the legs of the Mullins and the McLaughlins and we haven't even talked about, you know, Tommy Conroy and Cillian O'Connor being, you know, if they can keep Aidan O'Shea inside and Tommy Goals and Cillian O'Connor fed with ball by winning the midfield and giving their dynamic half-back line with Keegan the chance to go and express themselves, with the bench should see them through, I feel. Okay,
if you're Cavan this week, if you were in Cavan this week, would you have made a bigger deal out of the venue and tried to use that as a distraction, as a rallying cry, or would that have been something that provokes the Dublin beast? How would you have handled that whole thing? Don't worry, the Dublin beast is continuously provoked, because that's the type of team they are. They're all fighting for places and they're going to devour you one way or the other. I think they possibly missed the trick. You know, there was a bit of, look, we want to play in Croke Park, and in my eyes I'd be saying I want to win an All-Ireland semi-final and try and get into a final. So what's my best play here? My best play is to try and bring it to a ground that is tighter
You saw what they did to Donegal in the athletic grounds in Armagh, a tight pitch. They hunted in packs. They were. We were talking to Tommy last night, and he was making the point that they were almost like Tyrone in 03 against Kerry. They were just, running around, getting hands on, getting bodies on, and maybe, we won't show fear by saying we don't want it on in Croker, but the fact is they should be probably scared that it's on in Croker and that this Dublin team are a completely different animal. This is a major step up for this Cavan group. They've done extraordinarily well in the last 2 years under Mickey Graham, and to get to this point, but don't make any mistake about it. They are entering the Lions Den here, and how Lions stalk their prey. They pounce, they use their strength, and they go for the juggler, and that's what this Dublin team, go and do. And look, that'll be it's a big difference to be running around and tackling in packs on a athletic grounds pitch that's in November, or that's taken a good bit of rain over the last few months, versus being on the crisp, fresh surface of Croke Park, where Dublin are just so at home, and their kicking ability is unrivaled inside in Croke Park, because they obviously play there more than anybody. So they know the posts. There's a big thing in that. When we used to play in Killarney, I used to always love playing in Killarney over playing in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, because I just knew you play so many games there, county championship games, etc. You know the place, and you know what way the wind goes, and what way you have to kick certain kicks into the position. So they may have maybe missed a trick. I get why they didn't do it, but I think I would have been leaning for the possibly just trying to get them out of there. Look, obviously you couldn't do that in any normal year, but this isn't a normal year. This is COVID-19. This is restrictions. This is no crowds at the game. So I probably would have made.
Maybe we have to do this in a normal year, where Dublin don't have home advantage in All Ireland semi-finals every year nailed on. It is kind of ridiculous.
I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you on the semi-final stage. I think there may be Leinster Championship games, if they get a draw, that they should be probably on the road. But look, it doesn't really matter to Dublin. Dublin would play it on Dublin don't care where it's on. Which
I know, but the rest of the country does, because that point you make about Killarney, is right. The Dubs do know that ground better than everybody else, and in every sport in the world, home advantage is something that you fight for. In basketball, you fight for your home court in the best of seven, or in the NFL. The only
we've talked about this. We've talked about this on
shot clock.
On shot clock, Ger, how important it is, and how many game sevens have been won on the road in major American sports, and it's not too many. And what an All Ireland final is in many respects is a game seven for Dublin. They have more fans. They know the place. They're playing at home, so it is an advantage. But I think for Cavan, I think maybe trying to get him out of there might have given them a better chance to win the game. I get why they want to play him there, but that's all well and good, and the bravado of it's fine. But when you step up and you all of a sudden start seeing the strength, the power and the speed of this Dublin group, and how fluid they are and how accurate they are with their passing, how their forwards get out in front every time, how they're probably the most not underrated because that's wrong, that's silly. They've just such a specialist full back line with Fitzsimons and Davy Byrne and these fellas. They're athletic, they pull and drag out of you, they're super fast, they're super strong, and they're very good at what they do, and they have no real interest in doing anything else, only nullifying you and marking you out of it. So they have all the X factor down there, and it is a big thing. I was reading Eamon O'Donoghue's piece last week, and they were on about the kickouts and that scenario. Like, in Cavan went long 14 times against Donegal in the Ulster final. They won 7, which is 50%, and they scored 1-2 out of it. And they were saying he made a very good point that Donegal won 21 out of 24 of their kickouts, going short an awful lot of the time, but only scored 3 points off it. But if you give Dublin that type of possession in a wide open, expansive Croke Park, where getting bodies back around the ball is a lot harder, they could decorate you with that amount of ball, and that's what Cavan. I don't know. Cavan are going to have to do something about that. They can't give Stephen Cluxton all them easy kickouts, and they can't hope to get back. There's been lots of teams have gone up against Dublin in recent years and tried to put a kind of defensive structure in place and sit back. They're just, the work they've done over the years with Jim Gavin, the work that Desi has probably tried to do in his limited time, but even Mark Ingle, the stuff they've done against that packed defence and how to unlock it and where the spaces are and backdoor cuts, that defensive blanket doesn't work against this Dublin team. it stifled him. Jim McGuinness stifled him in 2011. He pulled one over their eyes in 2014, and they haven't lost a game there since, sure. So every team has gone at them different ways, and you know, it is hard to see how Cavan are going to. They're going to have to win middle of the field. Is probably a big thing they're going to have to do, and that's going to be hard.
It's the biggest, one of the biggest shocks that we can ever remember if they manage to pull it off. They're 14-point underdogs. I did want to just mention one last thing at the end here. The Peter Keane situation in Kerry. Colm Keys was reporting on Saturday in The Independent that a meeting of the players did take place, and there are reports that the county executive want him to freshen up his backroom team. I think, like, there's probably the Dubs and Kerry exist in a very rarefied atmosphere where rumours sweep WhatsApp and social media quicker than any other sports teams in the country. Maybe the Irish rugby team or World Cup are at that level as well. And Paul Gainey put his fake news Donald Trump tweet out, and I think Mark O'Shea was rubbishing the stuff that had been on as well. But there's mood music around this management and the backroom team at the moment. What's your understanding of where things are at, and do they just need to freshen up somebody in the backroom team to say, yeah, grand, fair enough, that's done, and move on?
It's a hard one because, you know, I think going back even to Donny Buckley coming in, I don't overly think he was a pick of Peter Keane. I think it was a move to try and add this very good coach that was above in Mayo, making them really one of the best tackling forward units in the country, and the pressure that they were putting on. And I think Kerry looked at getting them, and that didn't work out. So I think bringing somebody in, you know, it would very have to be much if Peter Keane wants one, or if Peter Keane sees somebody that he feels can add something to the setup. I don't think you can kind of force somebody on a group or on a management team. Do Kerry need somebody? Possibly. I would say it would do no harm if it was the right person. But you know, the WhatsApp stuff and it is frustrating. And you know, you saw Darren O'Sullivan stuff yesterday, and I'd echo it. It's frustrating for a Kerry person, a past Kerry player. When you see these people around you, maybe inside in the office and work, there was two fellas came into me with the phones. Oh, do you hear this going on? And I'm like, really, lads? Are we really going down the road of believing everything? It's such a dangerous. I'm telling you, I wrote about it in my book. It's a dangerous tool. This WhatsApp. It's so easy to start something fake on it, Ger. It's so easy to put something together, put it out there, and we all have to take a look at ourselves, what we get and what we pass on to other people. We have to take a real look at ourselves, and it's only, you know, it's somebody else's lives that we're talking about on a more serious matter. Yes, it's a bit of gossip, it's a bit of jargon, and but there was players mentioned in that WhatsApp message that I know the caliber of guys, and yes, I hope they did. I hope they did go at the management inside in that meeting. I hope they did demand more. I hope they did lay down the law from the players' side of it and say, we need A, B, and C, or we feel like we could do A, B, and C better. Because these guys, both management and players, put their lives on hold to represent Kerry and try and do as best as possible for the county. They know themselves that no matter what Peter Keane or the management could have done below in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, I still said after that game, a lot of that sat with the players in their performance. And yes, a lot of it sat with the management and the way they were set up and the way they were told to go out and play. So, you know, everybody should have been taking responsibility at that meeting. I hope the management challenged the players to, you know, bring more in a knockout game, bring more edge, bring more tenacity. You know, don't back down. You know, get really at it. If you're going to be representing Kerry, every game should be like your last game if you have the green and gold on. So go at it and do your best as you can, and we'll try and do more to set us up better, to have us in a better position. I hope that conversation was both ways in this meeting, and if it was, and there was stuff cleared out, it can only be good for Kerry. But the stuff that comes out when people hear there's a meeting, all it takes is one guy to put a WhatsApp message together. He could make up absolutely anything he wants, and he can send it on to 10 of his groups, and the 10 groups will send it on to another 100 people, and 100 people will send it to 1,000 people, and it just spreads like wildfire around the place. And complete bullshit at the end of the day. So it's very frustrating for a team, and very frustrating, I would imagine, for players like Paul Gainey and David Moran, who were mentioned in that, who would never do anything like that. Who, if they had an issue, they would say it straight up to the management, and the management could chop them down or agree with them or say, yeah, we'll go work on it. But not this vote and all this. That doesn't happen in Kerry, and it's very frustrating to see. Very frustrating for the players and very frustrating for Peter Keane, because, you know, yeah, he'll look at himself and he got a lot of things wrong, and maybe he'll look at freshening things up. But, you know, the disappointment level in that dressing room after that game would have been catastrophic for that group. You know, to go down to a Munster semi-final with Cork, be very fancy to win. Cork not overly being a great team. You know, when we were losing to Cork and Páirc Uí Chaoimh back in the day, they were the second or third best team in the country. And yeah, you got clipped down there every once in a while, and you went home and you had the meetings. I've been in the meetings in the Hayfield Manor. I've been in the meetings in the dressing rooms in Killarney. Just paint coming off the walls, and we're challenging Jack O'Connor, and we're challenging everybody, and he's challenging us, and there's a bit of fireworks, and that's very good and very healthy for a group. What do you do to fix the problem? Do you sit down and say nothing and go talking behind each other's backs, or do you address the issues, go straight to the point, and go toe to toe and try and come to some sort of agreement on how you're going to bring this thing forward? And I hope that happened in Kerry, and if it did, it can do nothing but help the team going forward.
Yeah, fair enough. Kieran, good stuff. Thanks a million.
All right, boys, take it easy. Have a nice morning. Okay, sound.
That's Kieran Donaghy with us this morning, 8:36 here on OTB AM. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Some comments. Isel Cody says, me listening to @StarryBoy14 and off the ball yelling, stop giving Mayo a game plan. Of course, Isel's a Tipp woman. Cavan Lad says they should play the team and not the occasion. I mean, the team is the Dubs. That's not going to work too well either. And Mickey Quinn saying, get to the 6-yard box on a turnover. I love this on creating space on a turnover. Give a long option and leave space for a running game. Depth and width in attack. And Denny Ryan on YouTube says the Super 8s are nonsense. Soulless second chance for everyone in backdoor way to go. Think of impact on club fixtures too, Owen. This was after your mini rant at 7:30 this morning.
It's bad when you're sticking up for the Super 8s, I'll accept that. But is he saying a soulless second chance for everyone in the back door is the way to go? Is that the soulless thing is the thing that he wants? Get back in touch, Denny. I accept that Super 8s are not perfect, but I think that there's been a little bit of misplaced anger towards what's actually happened here. And I don't think that the same level of anger was here before this thing actually started. I think we've suddenly looked around and said, hold on a minute, we play more games, and that one very dominant team happened to look much more dominant because we're playing more games. That is what it boils down to for me.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, so we'll come back to that a little bit later on. 0879 180 180 is the number. If you want to get in touch with us, you can tweet us @Off the Ball. You can leave a comment on the YouTube stream that we stream live on every morning. Now, I'm delighted to say Tipperary coach Paddy Christie joins us this morning as AIB launched The Toughest Season. It's a photo book, a pictorial account of how hurling, football and camogie communities have come together to support one another throughout one of the toughest years in history. There's the front cover of it, and it's called The Toughest Season, a year like no other in Gaelic games. Paddy Christie, you've had some season, all told. How are you?
Not too bad now, not too bad. It's going reasonably well at the moment, I must say.
Yeah, you've been quite busy. I think Sigerson success early in the year and a Munster title with Tipperary. If you were sitting down at the start of the year, you'd have been pretty happy with that, I suspect.
Yeah, I think the DCU one, there was always a possibility of that happening. Tipperary was there were longer odds than that, shall we say, but that's after happening as well. So look, it's a fantastic season and great to be involved. 85 years for Tipperary. I mean, DCU have won a good few Sigersons, but for Tipperary, and the DCU thing was very special, but I must say that Tipperary tops it all now. It's fantastic for the lads, and hopefully it'll continue on Sunday. You
must have had some sense that it was not likely, but possible, and then as the week went on, more of a growing sense that it was likely with Tipp. What was that? What was the build-up actually like?
I suppose there was it was a strange build-up because of the events surrounding it as such. Firstly, it was a Munster final, needless to say, for Tipperary, which is a big event anyway. It's not your run-of-the-mill Cork and Kerry would be used to that every year. But then you've got the whole Bloody Sunday commemoration and the weekend that was in it, wearing the jerseys. It was strange, but it was very enjoyable, and the lads were very focused, and I was impressed with how mature they were about it, because it's very easy to get sidetracked, and the focus was still on football. It was still on a game of football. It was still on, executing basic skills and working really hard, and and tackling and blocking and catching the ball clean. And Bloody Sunday was really, really important in a different type of way. It wasn't mentioned an awful lot, but you knew it was in people's minds.
Yeah, and the actual jerseys emerged afterwards. You were training in them for the week beforehand. Was that what happened?
Yeah, so it was a very good idea. I think probably was David Power, but I can't remember who suggested, but like they got the jerseys in early and wore them, and you know, in your 30-man match that you were having in training, lads were wearing them, and that just sort of got you past that tiny little probably doubt in your mind, worrying about going out on Sunday with this new jersey with a different colour. I know it sounds very, very trivial to people, but footballers can be superstitious, and I was myself a little bit over the years, and it could just play in your mind a little bit. So it was good to get that done, play in them, and sort of not get out of the way, because you're respecting the occasions, and it's so important to honour it. But it was just that we got past that little speed bump, and then we just focused on the game, and then of course winning the match and playing so well was the best way to honour the whole thing.
And in terms of the execution of the game plan, could it have gone any better?
Well, I suppose if we had scored a goal that was disallowed, the goal was allowed, that we would have sort of felt that it would have went really well. I mean, we were still hanging on in there in the last few seconds. We were 3 points up and Cork were attacking, and there's real hands over the eyes job. The game plan, I mean, I don't think there's anything fancy with Tipperary. They attack the game. They've always done that, and I've been an admirer of them for years, well before I got involved. My mother is from Tipperary and have relations down there, and I'm a big fan of theirs, because more to do with the football that they play and the way that they play. It's a simple enough game, and if it comes off, people talk about game plans and tactics and all, but realistically, it's fairly simple, and you get chances at certain times and you have to take them, and I suppose that's what we did. Like, our conversion rate was quite high, and hopefully we'll have the same on Sunday.
That's interesting. I guess the amount of time that you spend on a game plan versus the amount of time that you spend on yourself. How was that divvied up ahead of the Cork game? Did you focus a lot on what they'd done in the previous round and how you were going to stop them, rather than how you were going to get the best out of yourselves?
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I certainly think we did spend some time on ourselves, a good bit of time. What ratio? Geez, I couldn't tell you. But I know that we spent a lot of time worrying about ourselves and less about Cork. We knew about Cork as it was, and a lot of these guys have played against Cork underage. We actually played against them in the league, and we had quite a good game with them. They eventually pipped us, but we knew what the story was with them. We knew they were good, and we knew that we'd have to perform very well. But I don't think the lads were intimidated in any way. I think they felt not cocky in any way or arrogant, but they certainly felt they could do it, and you just got that feeling as the week went on that we could possibly pull this off, and obviously that's what happened.
So when we have that conversation around Mayo, I presume you're in touch with all the Dublin coaches, all the great minds that have managed to crush Mayo dreams over the last decade. So you've got a wealth of knowledge now ahead of this weekend, no doubt.
Well, coming back to the last point, I suppose you know loads about Mayo. I mean, you can ask other counties and you can ask other management and look for advice. But I suppose this is stuff, everyone, like, these are household names you're playing against, like the Aidan O'Sheas and the Kieran O'Connors and Paddy Durkins. Everyone knows them inside out, so it's not a case of needing to find out any more information. We're already unfortunately aware of their capabilities, and that's where it comes back to us. You look at them, you say, yeah, they've got strengths, an awful lot of them. Try and identify a couple of weaknesses, and then sort of move on and say, right, what are we going to do? Because that's all we're in control of. I mean, realistically, if Mayo go out and really perform really well with the depth that they have and the quality of players that they have, it'll be very hard to stick with them. But what you have to do is you've got to hang on in there in the rocky patch, and then try and bring your own game into play, which is obviously an attacking game for us, and try and rack up scores and see what happens then.
Has there been much talk about the 2016 game this week? Like, is there a sense almost that the early black card in that game was something that really dashed Tipperary's chances, because I think people look back on that and say, Tipperary did well to be there. But that was a contest for a lot of that game, which I think has been brushed over a little bit this week.
Definitely was a contest. I mean, I remember watching that game and I was rooting for Tipperary, not because of anything against Mayo, and I've an awful lot of time for them. But I suppose with my connection to Tipperary, and I'd be friendly with Declan Brown down there as well, and would have known David well before I got involved in management with him. So, I was rooting for them. I remember thinking, God, that was one that got away. They could have done that. Would have been come in under the radar a bit, but certainly were well capable of pulling that off. And yeah, the black card certainly had an effect, but Mayo just probably experience-wise just had a little bit more on them that time. And you'd hope that some of the lads who were involved at that time from our group will have learned a little bit from that as well. I mean, the more you play in Croke Park, the more it becomes just normal, which is that's what you're looking for everything to be just the same as always. You don't want any major speed blocks, something like that. You need to have everything the same routine all the time, and that's what we're sort of looking for there. Like, as regards the experience of the All-Ireland semi-final, and whether it's come up, not really, to be honest with you. Like, there are some new players in this group, and it's a new game, and we're in a different position. We're coming back off a Munster Championship win. You have to remember, 2016, you were coming through a qualifier, but I think this is a different dynamic now.
Yeah, it's very different. We had Michael Quinlivan on last week, and he was openly saying that he really enjoyed the game against Cork. I think everybody sitting at home watching it saw a smile after his first brilliant point of the game, and it seems that there was a lot of smiles on a lot of faces during the game before the final whistle had blown. How much is that replicated inside the camp in training, that people are really enjoying their football this year, and there's actually a premium on that's actually a really important part of this experience?
Yeah, I suppose in fairness, when things are going well and you're winning, it's that bit easier as well when you're in that good vein of form. But like, what's the precursor to that? Like, what started that? I honestly don't know. I suppose a number of factors came into play, but fellas coming back from travelling, the likes of Michael Quinlivan and Liam Casey, and then injury-wise, we've been reasonably lucky with injuries. We were unfortunate to lose Jack Kennedy a few weeks ago, and other than that, we lost Stephen O'Brien for the Limerick game, but other than that, we've been sort of kept a very tight panel and kept the lads injury free. Ronan Cross does a great job with physio and keeps fellas on the pitch, and Robbie Cannon, the strength and conditioning lad, has done great work, injury prevention, etc. So we've been lucky in that regard, that we've had we've kept fellas on the pitch, and that makes fellas happy, and that brings it back to your thing about fellas smiling. I think when things are going well and fellas are training well and there's a vibe around the place, it just sort of transforms into the whole way you play as well, I think. And there is a smile on lads' faces, and I think there will be on Sunday, regardless of how things are going. I think fellas are enjoying their football. Obviously, if you're under severe pressure and Mayo are all over you like a rash, that will be a problem. But I think our lads in general, they are going out to enjoy their football, and like, football is like the season that we have in particular, that we've just all endured in every way, in our work lives and in our personal lives and sporting lives. I think it brings you back to the whole idea of appreciating what you have and going out and enjoying matches, because I suppose we got a little bit carried away over the years and took things too serious and forgot to enjoy the basic things in life, and going out and playing in Croke Park is fundamentally an enjoyable experience.
Well, listen, I hope you guys all enjoyed this weekend. Paddy, we can hear real life impinging in the background. We'll let you go and get about your day's work. Thanks a million for joining us.
No problem. Talk to you soon. It's
Paddy Christie, of course, Ballymun Kickham's and Dublin legend, but now part of the backroom team of the Tipperary footballers. And he's there today with AIB, who've partnered with Sportsfile, the GA and the Camogie Association to publish The Toughest Season. All proceeds from the sale of the book will be donated to the AIB Together Fund, supporting Age Northern Ireland, Alone, Food Cloud, SOAR and Pieta House. The book can be bought at all good bookstores and online at sportsfile.com. /the toughest season, /ID /the toughest season. But if you go down to Sports File, they'll should be easy enough to pick it up from there. I'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the number to WhatsApp us or text us on this morning. And OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We will take a quick break. John Duggan will be up next, and we'll be back then.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB.
Paul Barrett sending off, was that a turning point for you, Tommy?
Would you believe? I didn't know he was sent off until I see it. There's a good few WhatsApps coming in. The fashion icons, all the lads in Muckley and Galway and O'Loughlin's, they were talking about, I didn't know what they were talking about, the class of 95 Mayo and Tullaroan teammates and one or two Ballycallan lads there as well. They were in it, so I had to put it in. Was Cathal Barrett sent off? Quick.
OTB live commentary. Never miss the action right here on OTB Sports Radio.
Into sports.
20 yards out, Ursha shoot, don't shoot! Oh, what a goal from Fabinho! Wow!
Then get into the all-new OTB Sports app.
I think when he apologises to me, I probably will say hello to him, yeah. No.
Videos, sports news, live scores, interviews.
If Fabregas is going to come up to me in the street and give me some of the mouth that he would have given me on a football pitch, what would he get a slap?
Plus, exclusive content on the OTB Podcast Network. The biggest names in sports. Ready when you are. Search OTB Sports on your app store and download it now.
OTB AM
with Gillette, your most supported our frontline workers this Movember.
8:51 this morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. We'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the number. If you want to get in touch with us, you can also leave a comment on the YouTube stream. John Duggan is with us this morning. John, how are you?
Ger and Owen, I'm great, and you?
All right. It's busy. It's the week of All-Ireland football semi-finals, where there are two unbelievably heavy favourites, 14-point underdogs in the form of Cavan. And
I'm sorry, Cavan. I'm sorry. It'll be a nice day, but it'll be a long day.
Is there any possibility?
No possibility.
Is there nothing?
No.
Can anybody make a case? Owen?
No, the Dubs are this machine who will probably feel sick to the stomach that some sort of happiness actually came out of this year's championship. The very idea of happiness and joy is something that the Dublin footballers are allergic to. They will watch the Late Late Toy Show last Friday and feel sickened by all the joy coming out of this. There is no room for happiness in this world in which the Dublin footballers exist. Everything needs to be pummeled, everything needs to be destroyed. And unfortunately, this great GAA story that we've had this winter is also going to be left by the wayside in a brutal state of perhaps non-existence come the end of Saturday night.
Wow.
So no, I don't give Cavan a chance.
Wow. Existential dread creeping in from Kerry and spreading generally all over Ireland, wherever Owen Sheehan goes. That was beautiful, Owen. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I won't be able to match that. What I will be able to say is that I'm interested to see would Dublin bring a Leinster performance to an All-Ireland final, because in the 5 in a row, there was 2 draws with Mayo and Kerry. There was a 6-point win over Tyrone, which is the most comfortable, a 3-point win over Kerry in the rain, and a 1-point win over Mayo in 2017. All of the All-Ireland finals have been close to a degree, but they've never really blown out a team in an All-Ireland final. And the way they played against Meath, they could blow out Cavan this weekend, they could blow out Mayo or Tipperary in an All-Ireland final. Then I think you'll have more heat and more debate than we've already had.
Are they smart enough not to do that? Are they smart enough with like 10 minutes left to go in a game where they're 5-6 points up to just possession the match out, as opposed to the way, old school, any team would have just gone, I'm getting my goal in the All-Ireland final? Are they smart enough to manage that?
I don't think the players would even think about that.
No, but the management might be like, okay, possession lads, game's over.
And imagine they do that. And there was a time when they were toying with Tyrone. I think it was in a semi-final a couple of years ago. They were toying with them and they were just playing around in the back. But yeah, look, the great thing about amateur sport is that you can get flipped on its head. And on the day, we've seen in the finals, as I said, if it is Mayo-Dublin, Mayo will fancy their chances that if they can stay there for maybe 3/4 of the game, they might have a squeak. But on all evidence, it's Desi Farrell has just taken over from Jim and it's continued.
Yeah. All right. What's happening in the world of sport?
Well, it's the women's team at 5 o'clock against Germany, and this will be a miracle if we win. It'll be a bigger result than the men's team beating Germany in 2015, because Germany have scored about 43 goals. They've conceded none. The Ukraine defeat is a really tough one for Vera Pauw's side to take. If they beat the Ukraine score tonight, they do get that playoff. But Vera Pauw remaining optimistic.
We have the second half of the first game, so that shows that we are capable of things. But we also, in that sense, we also need to be realistic. And every time we're playing better, and every time we're more capable of dealing with this high pressure. So we need to see what we can do, but it's definitely not a game plan to just kick the ball forward.
So West Ham United beating Aston Villa 2-1 in the Premier League last night. Fulham defeating Leicester City by 2-1. Great win for Fulham to move out of the bottom three, and Leicester's bubble burst possibly at Anfield, and it hasn't got back into a normal form. But it's all about VAR, isn't it, this morning? Again, like I was watching Neville and Carragher last night. They spent the whole time after the game talking about VAR because Ollie Watkins had a goal which was disallowed. The geometry kits came out, the interminable amount of time it took to make the decision. And Andy Robertson from Liverpool was asked about this yesterday before the Villa-West Ham game, and he says that they've got to do something about VAR.
Too many games are passing by that, you're either watching on telly and, the people in the studios are still discussing referees' decisions or still discussing what could have been and what couldn't have been. I didn't think that was possible after VAR, but it's now becoming possible. And, for me, if that's still going to be a discussion and still, going to be a thing, then I would much rather leave it up to the referee's naked eye. It's much easier to accept mistakes then than it is when so much technology is around it, because when referees make mistakes, it was just that what they seen in that moment. And, we go out in football parks and make mistakes all the time. So they were no different and it was easier to accept. But now that you have technology and so many cameras that they have all angles and they have a second referee that's watching the game from a telly, then it just makes it that bit more difficult, I think.
Do we want life as grey or do we want the robots? That's the debate really at VAR at the moment. Liverpool playing Ajax in the Champions League tonight. A draw will be enough to get them through to the last 16. A lot of injury issues at Liverpool at the moment. Obviously, Thiago's out, Van Dijk, Joe Gomez, James Milner, Shaqiri, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Naby Keita, all out of the match. Kick-off at 8. Newcastle's game against Aston Villa on Friday in doubt, possibly because of COVID issues in the Newcastle squad. All of the players isolating at the moment. 4 players testing positive last week, 1 staff member as well. Raul Jimenez, the Wolves player, it's really good to see, tweeting out that he's thanked everybody for the messages of support. He's fine. He's hoping to return to the pitch soon. Obviously, after the very serious incident against Arsenal, he suffered a fractured skull, but he will be okay. Munster made it 7 wins from 7 in the Pro 14. What challenges are there for the Irish provinces in this competition? I don't know. 52-3 over Zebra, 43-14 for Ulster over Edinburgh. David Nucifora says no plans to change overseas player selection policy. So several high-profile internationals could move abroad with contract negotiations on hold until the new year. Johnny Sexton, Peter O'Mahony, CJ Stander, just 3 of them whose deals are up for renewal. But Nucifora says no change in approach from the IRFU.
At the moment, the position we've been in, as we've been in all along, is to, if players choose not to play their rugby in Ireland, it's unlikely that we would select them. It's not a hard and fast rule. There is no hard and fast rule about that. We've never had one. But our attitude towards it wouldn't change. We'd be selecting players who stay here and play for our provinces.
Lewis Hamilton testing positive for COVID will miss the Sackler Grand Prix at the weekend. The world champion. Limerick stages a jumps meeting today, lads. 12:40 the start time.
You were at both hurling semi-finals at the weekend?
Oh, it was brilliant, lads. It was great. I love that sport more than any other. Football is a beautiful global religion, but hurling is, I know it's probably your favourite sport, Ger, maybe American football, but my favourite sport as well. And Waterford, I was reading Ken McGrath's book as we were speaking to him on Saturday. I was reading it the night before, sifting through it, and Waterford were drowned in hype in 2008. They couldn't cope with the occasion. And I'm even thinking about players wearing helmets now. Remember, Waterford played with such abandon and freedom in those years in the noughties, like Ken McGrath, Paul Flynn, Dan Shanahan, Tony Brown. Everybody knew who they were. Like Callum Lyons, would you know who he was if you walked down the street? Maybe it's because of the helmets and that. But no crowds, no crazy hype down on Shoreside. 1959, 61 years. The way they finished in that second half against Kilkenny, obviously, some managers just have it, and Liam Cahill's just seems to have it. He had it at underage level at Tipperary, made a lot of tough decisions at Waterford early doors. He's really reconstructed that defence. And maybe Kilkenny are not as good as they were, but the way they finished, they have, as they used to say, Big Mo at the moment. They've got momentum. And Limerick now face the really difficult thing where Limerick have been the best team in the country the last couple of years. They've won the league, they've won a couple of Munsters, they got caught in the semi-final last year, and now they've got to play a team like Clare 97, who they've already beaten again. And that'll be fascinating to see. Galway never, to me, looked like scoring a goal against Limerick, but they're always hanging around. If Joe hadn't gone off, would it have made a difference? So I'm absolutely enthralled by the prospect of this All-Ireland final. I think people are disagreeing with me on this, but I think Waterford are an absolute free shot at this.
By free shot, you mean that they're underdogs? They didn't expect to get here.
Yeah, they're manager first season. I know, that doesn't come around that often.
That's the issue, isn't it?
But I just think that it's a bit like Armagh. Armagh needed a few goals and then they came through. I just see Waterford. Waterford aren't going to go away. They've got a young team. Look, and I think they've got a manager now, because Derek McGrath was quite defensive in the way he played the game. But Derek McGrath to me was a psychological, motivational coach who got Waterford believing that, again, that they could reach All-Ireland finals, which they did, and they narrowly lost to Galway. But this seems to me to be a team that is playing with just a lot of freedom and abandon, but also a bit of discipline and work rate that I wouldn't have seen in Waterford teams before. And I think that, why wouldn't they go away next year? That's why I think they got a free shot. All the pressure is on Limerick.
There's definitely a lot of pressure on Limerick. It's just that Waterford might not get this opportunity again, where it's winter, they have a short turnaround, everybody's available. Do you know, like, I wouldn't be saying to them that, don't worry, you're going to get this chance again. I would also be reminding them that actually you haven't won a championship game like in 3 seasons, essentially. Like the Munster Hurling Championship is the most cutthroat sports competition in the world, and Clare are coming, Limerick are going to be there, Cork will get everything together at some point, and you've got Tipperary. So are you definitely going to make it out next year? I'm not so sure. You know, the draw worked out in a way that allows you to lick your wounds from the Munster final defeat. Well, maybe it didn't, but it certainly, I don't know. The opponents matched up right this year. You've got to take the opportunity when it comes to win these big games.
Yeah, and they have that now, and they're 70 minutes away, and it is, like we've seen historical things, Tipperary and Cavan in 1959. They brought Kilkenny to a replay that year. And they've only played, 63, 2008 and 2017. But like even Limerick as well, like in 2007 with Richie Bennett, the hype, they couldn't handle it, and Kilkenny killed them in 10 minutes. Limerick are not maybe playing as well as they were when they beat Tipperary.
Well, so that's interesting. What were they actually like to see in the flesh?
They were. Look, they're a very, very good team. Once again, they didn't look like scoring goals. And to be fair to John Coddy, he made good substitutions. Peter Casey made a real impact when he came on. Keane Lynch got into the game in the second half. What really impressed me is that a lot of wides early on, the 6 wides early on, the likes of Garrett Hegarty, Dermot Burns, Tom Morrissey, they have an ability to pick points from that middle part of the pitch and get them over. And Galway never looked like scoring a goal. And Limerick's full back line maybe has come under more scrutiny than it would have. To me, they were always doing enough. You know, when the horse is ahead and you think you're going to overtake them and you don't. They always were doing enough. Like Galway drew level with Evan Nyland, and Limerick were still able to just tag on 3 to 4 points, just as they did against Waterford in that last period of the. And I still put them as favourites to win the match. I still think they'll win the All-Ireland.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the spreads. 4-point favourites at the moment.
Yeah, and I think they've that ability.
3.5.
They've got that winning mentality to just do enough. And they've only really caught fire in one game in the championship, which was the Tipperary game, where they were absolutely sensational in desperate conditions down at Porky Queeve. And if Limerick get goals, I think it's done. But what fascinated me was maybe Kilkenny didn't produce a 70-minute performance in the championship. Against Dublin, they collapsed in the second half.
Yeah.
Like first half against Galway. So how good were Waterford? Waterford looked amazing against Kilkenny, but are Kilkenny as good as they were? Who are the real Kilkenny forwards apart from TJ and Richie? Like that really made like that. You could reel off Eddie, you could reel off Henry, you could reel off all these players over the years, Aidan Fogarty, who get goals. Who, if one person didn't perform, another one would, and that would be the only thing that would maybe put a doubt in my mind about Waterford. But I do think they do have a degree of freedom, that there's the innocence of not thinking about it. And maybe Waterford are not thinking about it as much as they used to.
All right, John, good stuff. Thanks a million for that. That's John Duggan giving us his thoughts on the All-Ireland Hurling semi-finals. And more from John, obviously, on the show tomorrow. You can see his stuff on otbsports.com as well. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio across the day today. At 1 o'clock, it's OTB Gold with Jerry Eisenberg, the legendary boxing writer, talking about Muhammad Ali. Dadcast is there from 3 o'clock today. Mount Rushmore today is Limerick, aptly enough. I think the Limerick Mount Rushmore will be recast by the time these hurlers are finished. OTB Gold with Ronnie Delaney at 6 o'clock, talking about his Olympic gold in Melbourne and being an absolute superstar at a time when athletics was one of the biggest sports in the world. And then tonight the show is live from 7 o'clock. Coming up a little bit later here on OTB AM, it's Brian O'Driscoll and Keith Wood on Monday Night Rugby. We're shaving down at the end of Movember. Are you going to do Movember next year, JD?
It'll probably take me until November to grow a moustache. So next November.
You may as well get started. Nothing
yeah, I mean, I kind of look like one of these 80s West German pop stars. But yeah, I'll give it a shot. Yeah, anything for charity. Are you sniggering in the background, Sheen?
Yeah. It's just a great analogy is all. I'm not too familiar with 80s West German pop stars, but somehow
we need to get you into the new romantic zone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Me and you, John, listening party.
When the pubs reopen.
What was the band that made the song that the rumour was the FBI had, or the CIA had... There's a podcast series about it. It'll come to me. Right, here's Pat Nevin talking about the state of things at Celtic at the moment. We're going to talk about the Irish women's national team and their 3-0 defeat against Germany tonight with Phil next.
Scenes like that are bad enough anywhere in the world. You know, South America, you don't want to see scenes like that, right? It's just unacceptable. But then to see it here, in the middle of a pandemic where people are getting together, I mean, honestly, and if anyone says the phrase to me, you know, yeah, but what about, and say, give some excuse because, you know, it's going for 10 in a row. No, that's not an excuse. It's not good enough, not acceptable. No, I'd like to hear sorry to everybody that those people did that. Not from the club, but from any groups of supporters that were involved with it, right? So that's absolutely unacceptable. And by the way, digging me up all day long on Twitter about it, I don't care. You're in the wrong in this one, okay? As for Lennon, I feel sorry for him. Shall I try, just for fun, to try and make an excuse for him, right?
Yeah, please. No, please, because I can see, look, it's gone very badly on a whole host of fronts, and they're 11 points off Rangers with 2 games in hand, but it's gone really badly, so yeah, sure.
Right, not playing well. I was at the only game they've lost in the league before this season, right? So they're against Rangers. So it's a Rangers game, that was the one. And by the way, they're rotten, they deserve to get beat for that game. But they are 11 points behind. They've got 2 games in hand. They might win those 2 games, right? If they beat Rangers on January 2nd, they're 2 points behind. They have won the last 11 trophies in a row. Lennon's history has been phenomenal with that club and what he's helped them build and what he's helped them get. And if we are in a situation, from one angle, in a situation where a guy can win that much and do that much and then not get the players he wanted to get in the summer, and then you go out of 1 trophy, European stuff doesn't count. They haven't got the money to even get close to being competitive in that. But they go out of 1 League Cup. They're still in the league chase. They're still in it. But if they do that, how do you survive in the world of management if you win 11 trophies in a row? That's an argument for, do you know what? I'm not sure I believe that argument.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
They, to be honest, they've not been good. The decisions haven't been good. The buys haven't been good. And it doesn't look as if they're working for him. So it might not be long for Lenny. I hope for his sake he lasts till January 2nd, till the Rangers game. I think he probably deserves that, but I know what Celtic fans will say.
Pat Nevin there with a bit of a laundry list about why things aren't working out for Neil Lennon, but making the case that maybe he should be given another opportunity to stick with it. Phil Egan is with us now to help preview Ireland against Germany tonight. I think Ireland are actually bigger underdogs than Cavan at the weekend, so that's the level of expectation that the Ireland fans should have tonight. I think Vera Pauw has kind of been at pains to point out that they are the better team, Phil. Yeah,
I mean, she rates Germany as the best team in the world. She thinks they're ahead of USA now. She definitely thinks they're the best footballing team in the world right now. And, you know, what has changed since Ireland played Germany in Essen in September? Before that game, she basically said, we're not going to beat Germany. Like, nobody should expect us to beat Germany. So, you know, do we change the narrative because we need a result tonight? I mean, obviously, we're massive underdogs. I know one of the things that she's done is she sent the players footage of the Shane Long goal from 2015. And I think tonight's game, if Ireland were to get a result tonight, that would be a bigger upset than that game in 2015. That's
sending the players a montage of famous victories and historical moments. I hope it stopped at the maybe Robbie Keane's goal in 2002 and nothing else. You had a chance to talk to Vera Pauw yesterday. Let's have a quick look at that before we get into any more of this.
You've got a record before to say Germany play the best football in the world at the moment in terms of the women's game. Is there something that you can do to stop them? Is that maybe what you're thinking with the pitch? Try and make it an uglier game? Stop the rhythm of the Germans?
Yeah, but it's more not giving it away, not making it easier for them. I want to say it like that because, again, that pitch is extremely wide. So it's more not making it easier than it already is for Germany.
In terms of trying to stop them from playing, though, is there something that you've got planned? Because obviously,
of course, everybody will understand, and they will understand that we need to stop them from scoring to be able to win. So of course, there's plans in how we're going to do that.
And you've said before as well, like that this Ireland team has a ceiling. And are you any closer to knowing where that ceiling is? And did it take a little bit of a setback with the result in the Ukraine of players? Is the confidence?
No, we're growing. In this camp, we're playing again better football than in last camp. Every camp, it's better football. A doctor was aside at the training sessions. He was there at every session, and he said literally to me, "It's amazing how the pace of your game is going up." So that's a good compliment, especially because we've only seen each other 6 times in 14 months, and it shows how hard we've worked off the pitch also to get to a higher level. So no, it has not been a setback. Of course, it's still in our body, and it will never go out of us. It will always be that one moment. But the players, it's not influencing the players in their performance, not at all. They are up for it. They know what to do, and they are completely ready and fearless to face Germany.
Just one last one from me. Are you going to have any ear on what's going on in Kiev, the Ukraine game?
Oh, of course, yeah. Constantly, we will be online with them. Yeah.
Hoping for something
special
good from Montenegro, yeah.
Yeah. The question is, what is the bigger chance that Kiev lose points there, that we gain points from Germany? That's the big question. But of course, the ball is round. That's a cliche. We start 0-0. That's another cliche. We do our best that we have. We are going to play our best game ever, and then we see where we end.
So, Phil, just to reiterate exactly, how do we qualify from what sequence of miraculous results needs to happen?
Well, if we beat Germany, we're guaranteed a playoff place. If we were to draw and Ukraine drew with Montenegro, then we would also qualify. We could actually lose and still qualify for the playoffs, provided Montenegro beat Ukraine. Now,
Montenegro are useless.
Montenegro have lost all 7 games. They've scored 1 goal. Now, that did come against Ukraine, so they know what it's like to score a goal against Ukraine. But unfortunately, they've lost all their games. I'm clutching here.
Yeah, okay.
And actually, I genuinely wonder. I never got a chance to ask her which one. I did actually want to know which one did Vera Pauw think would be a bigger shock, if Montenegro beat Ukraine or if we beat Germany. But basically, if we don't beat Germany and we don't qualify for the playoffs tonight, it's not because of the Germany game. The 2 damaging results, obviously, the Ukraine game last month and the Greece game earlier in the campaign, where we conceded an injury time goal away from home. And, you know, it's so disappointing, because you think back to the Ukraine game last month and we outplayed them for large spells of the game, conceded a freak goal, missed a penalty, missed plenty of chances. So that's where the frustration is, that we should be looking at this game as basically a tune-up for a playoff.
Yeah.
Or to see, have we learned, or how have we progressed since that game against Germany in September, where we were 3-0 down at half-time, but actually played out a scoreless second half against them. And that was meant to be the encouragement that came into the Ukraine game. And everything was going okay. Then the own goal, you know, these things happen. You've got time to recover, miss the penalty, and that's where the frustration comes from. And it just feels like, Like, I know there's going to be a post-mortem after tonight's game anyway of, you know, what happens with Vera Pauw. Does she stay on?
Well, look, that was interesting. When just on that specific point, Ruud Doctor was at training. He said things have got better.
Yeah.
He's picking the next manager, or he's deciding whether or not she gets a new deal, right? There's nobody else. I mean, obviously, ultimately, the FAI chief executive and the board are going to have to sign off on it, but you would be amazed if they went against the recommendation of the person they've hired to make this decision. Yeah, absolutely. And if you would imagine if they want Vera Pauw to continue, then it's up to Vera Pauw to decide if she wants to stay on. But yeah, it's very clear watching the team that they're getting better. Now, that comes from, you know, like Sue Ronan kind of got the ball rolling, then Colin Bell, an excellent coach, came in. You know, it was a real surprise at the time when he left. But then they replaced Colin Bell with Vera Pauw, who, you know, has a great reputation in the game. And you can see the team is getting better, but also our players are getting better. We've got players in the WSL now. We've got high-quality players, full-time players. And that was something that Colin Bell always talked about, that it's all well and good having a handful of full-time players, but what's kind of letting the squad down then is we don't have enough full-time players. So the more full-time players we have, the better. And it's all about inspiring the next generation. And we've obviously put the, you know, things into place to coach the young kids coming up. And I suppose that's, for me, the disappointment after the Ukraine game was, you know, I don't have kids of my own, but I have nieces who play football, and, you know, they watched the 2018 World Cup, and I said, well, the 2019 World Cup is going to be on TV, and they watched the superstars of the women's game, and then they went to the games in Tallaght Stadium. They got autographs, they got, you know, football boots, shorts off players. No, and there's momentum behind that whole...
And this was the chance, because, you know, obviously the major championship is in England in 2022. But look, if we don't qualify for these championships, it's not far away in terms of whether it'll be a World Cup or a European Championship down the line. But I think in terms of tonight, I wouldn't have much hope that we can get a positive result. Obviously, you know, it's going to be ugly. Vera Pauw touching it there with the pitch. So she's requested the pitch is made a bit tighter, give Germany less space on the ball, and it really is going to be very similar to what I mentioned earlier about the Shane Long goal. And you think of that performance that night where backs to the wall, you know, there's going to be moments where it's heart in the mouth stuff, and you're going to have to ride your luck, because Germany are a quality team. They're stacked with players from Wolfsburg, Bayern Munich, Lyon, Arsenal, Chelsea. You know, we've got some really good players, but we're just nowhere near their level. Yeah. It feels a little bit like we're stuck in the Owen Hand era of women's football at the moment, where it's bad decisions, it's bad luck. We need a Jack Charlton. Is Vera Pauw our Jack Charlton figure, or is she our Owen Hand? No, I think Vera Pauw said herself that the team is getting better, and I think, you know, you also have to factor in... Does she get the credit for that, or do you think that would have happened anyway? No, I think a few people have to get credit for it, because, you know, you say somebody like Katie McCabe is the captain tonight. Who brought Katie McCabe in as a young player? Sue Ronan. Then obviously Colin Bell comes in, and, you know, he again, another really good coach in terms of the women's game, really good reputation, and was the manager when that famous press conference happened a few years ago. And the FAI had to basically start fronting up and saying, you know, we're going to back the game. So that's why I think if they're going to look at Vera Pauw, and they're hopefully going to sit down after the game and say, look, you know, we want to keep this going because we're getting closer. You think back to the last campaign under Colin Bell, it started off well, and then gradually it fell to bits. We got further along with this campaign, and now it's about the next campaign, making sure that not only do we start well, keep things going in the middle, but we finish well. We just haven't finished campaigns off well, but we're not far away. So I think Vera Pauw certainly is bringing this team in the right direction. And look, who knows, maybe the footballing gods will shine down on Tallaght Stadium this evening, or even in Kiev. But, you know, come 5 o'clock, I'll sit down with optimism and maybe some rosary beads, and we'll see what happens. But as I said, if we don't get the result tonight, it's not because of our games against Germany. It's what happened in Kiev and in Greece. All right, here's some more from Vera Pauw to really set the scene here. Listen there for the last question she gets asked.
We're good to go. There's luckily no more injuries than we had. Although they all had a clear background, but we're happy with the ones that we have now. Everybody's fit. There's no question marks. I've had other teams that were growing up to and were on the point of doing something special. It's probably the let's say the biggest task. Yeah. Because of the difference between Germany and us, and the point where we are at this moment.
Just finally for me, obviously you've played them already in the group. Are there areas in this team that Germany are vulnerable?
I wish. No, they're not vulnerable. No, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a game plan. We know them inside out, and we will do everything we can to get a result. And if we don't get it, then I hope we can show Ireland that we've done everything that we can at this moment within our capacities, and that we can make people proud and that we can make our fans proud.
Yeah, they are not vulnerable. They might have been vulnerable to the great scandal and difficulty of our time, Phil, COVID, but no.
No, they have no... She actually also said in that press conference yesterday as well, they have no weaknesses. Now, the one glimmer of hope for me would be set pieces, because obviously I mentioned Katie McKay, we know how good her delivery is, but also Louise Quinn and Diane Caldwell have combined for a few goals in this campaign where, you know, Louise Quinn wins the first header and Diane Caldwell finishes it off. So, you put a ball into the box, you never know what can happen. And what also came out of that press conference yesterday was Vera Pauw having a right go at UEFA over the COVID testing, that basically they had to change their training session yesterday. They were due to train yesterday afternoon, but they had to push it back to the evening, because when we did that press conference yesterday, it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. They still didn't know if they'd gotten the all clear from COVID testing. They'd done it on Sunday morning, but the results had then got sent to Northern Ireland, to Birmingham, and then to London. So she was wondering why. Yeah. That's where UEFA was. She basically said, why can't you just send the results to a lab in Ireland? And
is that because UEFA don't trust other countries not to be dicky about this stuff and cheat?
That could be it. I mean, UEFA probably just saying, look, we have the one lab that we're going to use, and that's just the way it has to be. But not ideal, considering she was there doing a press conference the day before a game, and she didn't know if she'd get the all clear in terms of her whole squad. But they did. They all tested negative, and she said that was always going to be the case, because she said if you actually looked at the hotel when they're sitting down for food, they're so far away from each other, they're taking all the right precautions. So she was confident there wouldn't be COVID cases like there was in Stephen Kenny's squad, unfortunately, the last few times. But it's going to take something pretty special this evening, and who knows? But so the important thing is that we've made progression in terms of the quality of players we're bringing into the squad, the experience.
Would you like to see her stay on?
I think so, yeah. I think it's very hard as well you throw COVID into things and you can't play friendly games. Friendly games is where you try out different things, and unfortunately she hasn't had that opportunity to do it. So I think I'd like to see her given more time, and I think definitely the qualifying isn't that far away. Who knows? I could be sitting here tomorrow morning talking about a great night for Irish football. I hope so.
Yeah. Look, one last point on this. The qualifying campaign for the next World Cup, is it obviously much harder to qualify for the World Cup, or is there a similar number of European teams who will be going to, and are they going to expand the World Cup? Do we know anything about that yet?
From what I believe, it's, if you think back to our last qualifying campaign, again, it's the same in terms of group winners, and unfortunately we're not in that conversation of teams that can win groups just yet. So our best chance is trying to get a playoff place. At one stage in this campaign, actually, we were looking like we might get one of the best runners-up spots, but not to be. Qualifying for a World Cup, it goes back to FIFA trying to make the game more global, that you've got a lot of spaces for different federations around the world, but in terms of the European places, it's still the heavyweights that tend to qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah.
So it ain't easy.
All right, Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million for that. That game kicks off at 5 o'clock this evening in Tala. We'll keep you up to date with it on otbsports.com and on the OTB Sports app. It is 9:24 and it is officially the 1st of December today. So that means November is over and that means Movember is over. And, you know, I presume some of you out there have been marvelling at our amazing moustaches. And time for our Movember Shave-Down.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, your Mo supported our frontline workers this Movember.
Yeah, Owen and Adrian Barry were the equivalent of frontline workers out there strutting their stuff with their glorious, luxuriant Mo's. Gentlemen, how are you? How proud are you, Adrian? You're proud of a lot of things, but how proud are you of your moustache?
So proud, tremendously proud. Couldn't be more proud. Greatest moustache that's ever walked the earth. I'm surprised that I've been able to grow one, is the first thing. I mentioned before, 40 odd years, I've never really attempted to grow any facial hair, so definitely proud, Ger. Massive success. And I know I was only put fourth, was it fourth on Tommy's fake news power rankings on Friday, but we all know that mine is the best.
Owen's been banging on about his all week, so I'm not going to ask him again. Kieran Collopy, good morning to you. How are you, sir?
Good morning, great. How's things? All good?
Yeah, good. So, look, before we get into...
Some fantastic moustaches. You did well the past month.
Oh, that's nice of you to say. I mean, there's a picture of Owen from the start, and look what he is now. Ah, that's class.
Yeah.
Shane Hannon's is class.
Are you going to miss him?
Well, I mean, let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see what's about to happen here. So that's mine, which I hadn't actually done the rest of the shaving around, so you can't really see. Also, salt and pepper on this doesn't really work so well. That's a bit filthy from Kieran Bradley, but very good as well. Kieran, before I get into this, right, but today is obviously the 1st of December. You're a barber at Studio 147. You're opening
145,
again.
yeah.
145. You're opening again today.
Yeah, open up at 10 a.m. this morning. So gonna leg it up after this and open up and get through. Yeah, a lot of haircuts this week. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
And are you booked?
It's been a quick 6 weeks though.
Are you booked solid, or if anybody wants to book?
Solid, yeah. It's got booked out till late next week, I think it is at this stage. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. So.
And a bit nervous. Is it like a reopening?
Few pre-match nerves there, yeah. But you know they'll be banished within a few minutes.
All right. So I obviously missed the start of this where everybody shaved down, and I'm given to believe that some of my colleagues may have cheated on this and actually grown a full beard and then just shaved into what was going on. So that's definitely not allowed.
No.
That's
it. Just like to call out the person who you're accusing of this, Ger. It was Shane Hannon who did this, wasn't it?
I mean, I don't know.
GMAC.
Yeah.
Where is he? You fire him?
It's a good question. If you watch back the tape, this is all happening live on camera. He didn't shave off his moustache at the time, and you commented on it there, Ger. It's class. Of course, it's a class moustache. He's been growing it since the start of the year. That is the problem with it. So I think all the goodness of Movember has been taken away by Graham McDowell's sickening behaviour.
Well, I've got to tell everybody, it's obviously for a really great cause. So anybody who picked up your Gillette Movember kit in store at Tesco has obviously been contributing to the various charities that help for men's health. Movember.com/Gillette. It's not too late to get involved. Obviously, you can do this all year round. So a donation was made to charity for each purchase made. And you can go to Movember.com/Gillette for that one to get any details on that. Adrian, what's it been like? How have your family taken to the fact that you're a changed and different and more mature and sophisticated man than you've ever been, especially given that you're a cultie from Westmeath?
I think they're taking it a bit more like it's been dropped into various WhatsApp groups of people that obviously everybody likes to have a bit of a pop jar. I'm sure you're acutely aware of this yourself. And I don't know, is it a bit like, the way Roy Keane sort of grows his facial hair? We've all been feeling a bit under the weather in terms of our mental health, obviously, which is, as you say, a big part of the reason that we're doing this. He grows his facial hair, he's not feeling that great. I think maybe that's a similar thing for me, but now that lockdown is over, it's coming off, baby, and the clouds are lifting.
Okay, Kieran, I just want generally, like, the amount of good quality moustaches that you would see, and I'm not talking about the... Things have changed, right? Men have got better at understanding how to do this as opposed to, back in the day where it was just kind of like a bit limp and lying there.
Sorry, I just lost the connection there.
That was probably for the best. Have we men got better at growing moustaches is essentially the short way of asking my long-winded question.
Have they got better at growing moustaches? I think they've always been able to grow them. I think they've just got better at owning it, just like it's more of it can be more stylish now these days, lads. You see younger lads going around with moustaches and it looks quite cool. It's kind of up there with like the mullet is making a comeback as well. So mullets and moustaches, like fashion comes full circle. And now you have mullets and moustaches in 2020. Which is pretty cool.
Are mullets easy enough to cut? I mean, obviously, nothing's that easy to cut. If you screw it up, it's a bit of a disaster. But
Yeah, I love cutting mullets. It's one of my favourite hairstyles to cut. But it's not as easy to pull it off. Easy to cut, not as easy to pull it off.
Adrian, I challenge you to a mullet.
Oh, no chance. I was actually just wondering, Kieran, as you were talking there, is there a type of person in Ireland who grows a mullet?
It's cool now. Like it's like it's kind of hip to have a mullet now.
It's not like Shane Byrne anymore. People it's a bit more hip like.
That's a different style. That's a different beast altogether. Does he still have it?
Yeah, that's Buffon.
Yeah, he does,
that's not actually a mullet. That was mischaracterised. That set the cause of mullets back a decade because that wasn't really a mullet at all. That was just long hair.
No, that was a mullet. That's a mullet. Definitely.
There's no I'm growing a mullet, no chance.
He had long hair at the front. It wasn't. You got to be. It's party.
It was slick back at the sides, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was styled into a mullet, definitely.
Okay, maybe.
From what I can recall, I haven't seen it in a while.
I think he probably knows better than you, Ger, in fairness.
We're
finding a losing fight here.
Fair enough. Okay, I'll bow down before Kieran Collop, our expert here. Right, so what's going to happen is I'm obviously in studio and covered in top quality, expensive gear here that I'm pulling the tops off, so I can't shave actually physically here. But the two lads have kindly volunteered to do the ceremonial denuding. Are you anxious, Adrian, about this?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was saying about taking it off. There is a part of me that has become a little bit partial to my friend here, and
my little friend.
Yeah, that I'm not sure. Like it gives you I definitely find that people, you get more looks. You get a lot of the sort of the Mo bros. Is that the expression? Whatever the people talk about, and you definitely find that a lot of people are going, "Oh, you're doing Movember as well," and it's a bit of a conversation starter. And you do get looks. I don't know if you lads have found that, but you get a lot of looks.
No, so you're just having conversations with people
randomly. Yeah, you're using this to ease your loneliness. Hey, look, if that's what it took. I mean, any port in a storm. As
that's the point. Is that not the whole point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're using the Gillette Fusion Pro Glide, sensitive shaving foam as well. Yeah.
That is the one.
Yeah, very good. You're not shaving, Kieran, are you?
No, I actually didn't grow a mo from Movember. I moved from Movember. I ran 80 kilometres through November to not all in one go, just through the month.
Very good.
Raised a few quid for that as well.
And that's
I don't have the confidence. I don't know if I have the confidence to pull off a moustache like the lads.
We can do it. I think the message out of 2020 has to be, if we can do it, anybody can do it. Right?
That's true. Adrian, you're a little bit slow there. You're supposed to be lathering up for us.
Oh, is that it? What about this, Kieran? Can I use this, or what's the?
You can use that. You can use that to get a bit of the heaviness off. But that's fantastic. The razor will do most of the hard work for you.
For our radio listeners there, Owen's streaked into the lead. He's like 3-4 to a point up at half time. He's got the whole thing done.
Yeah. Is this a race?
Well, no. We just want we want good quality, Kieran. One thing I have found is that it's probably been about 20 years since I would have shaved with any regularity. That the gear and the equipment has moved on to the point where it doesn't rip skin off you anymore, which was a very welcome new part of my life. So I'm happy to pay testimony. The sensitive shaving foam really worked, because normally if I was here, I'd still be bleeding. Things have definitely improved.
Well, that's it. The basis of every good shave, I find, every good shave is a close shave and a comfortable shave. So what you want to do is start off, for best results, is to shave straight after you're out of the shower or after you've put a hot towel on. You don't necessarily have to do that every single time. A lot of people mightn't have that time to do it, but like a gentle exfoliation before you shave, set yourself up nicely for a comfortable shave. Especially with the Pro Glide here, you've got the five blades as well. You've got the flex ball on it, which moves with the contours of your face as well. So it just makes everything a lot easier than it would have been with like, or closer and more comfortable than it would have been with like a single razor, you know?
Is this like, you know, that content, do you ever watch it on YouTube, that stuff where they like unpackage presents and stuff?
Called unboxing.
Like, most unlikely content you've ever seen, but it's going to get like millions of views. Is that what's happening here?
Okay, Grandad.
Yeah.
Is this like that unboxing thing that they do on the internet now?
Yeah.
You good man. Incredible. I'm not sure you're going to get millions of views with this, Adrian, but good job. You're hacking away at yourself there. Is there any other last hints and tips, Kieran, before we wrap this up that people should do? Anything else?
Yeah, what I'd always say is shave with the grain, which means shave like
up or down.
So whatever, everyone's growth pattern is different. So when you feel against the grain, you can feel it's kind of rough, but if you're going with the grain, it's smoother. So if you shave with the grain, you're looking at reducing things like razor bumps and irritation and ingrown hairs. With that as well, I'd shave with longer strokes as well.
Oh yeah.
That along with just preparing your face beforehand. The preparation's the main part of it, and then afterwards, splash of cold water and stay away from any alcohol-based rubs or aftershaves or anything.
Right. So be kind. Basically,
be kind. Yeah. And take the time. It's not a race. Just take the time to do it. You know, find the time in the day to do it, because you can end up just pulling the face off yourself sometimes if you're rushing. You know.
Kieran, where's your shop? Studio 145. Where is it?
145. It's on Francis Street. 144, 145 Francis Street. So it's just off Thomas Street there. So we just opened up on the 1st of July, straight after lockdown, and
good stuff. Well, we have
Look
one.
forward to getting back there now.
We have one billiard ball in Adrian Barry, but I suspect that somebody's pulled an old bait and switch on us here. Are you being a rebellion? Is there a mustachioed rebellion happening here, Owen? Are you just shaving around for a reason? You actually look like Joker at the moment with your face.
I just heard Kieran saying that you need to take your time. When I was doing this at the start, absolutely sliced off my chin, so I'll be taking my time.
Okay, all right. Well, we've had great crack doing this over the last month or so. We have absolutely looked like fools at various stages, but in the end, all's well that ends well. I'm turning mine into a pair of handlebars. Thanks to everybody who got in touch with your own mows over the last month, and thanks to everybody as well who picked up your Gillette Movember kit in store at Tesco. We'll see you again in 11 months. If you didn't pick it up, it's not too late. Movember.com/Gillette for that one. And my thanks to Kieran, and best of luck today. I know it's a nervous day and a day full of excitement for people who are getting their businesses back open after a very difficult period. So if you can support your local barber or whoever it is, those businesses really need your help at this stage, and they are the lifeblood of our economy. When you hear people say that, it is actually small businesses that we build the rest of our economy off the back of. So congratulations on getting your business back open, and congratulations to everybody involved in Movember over the last month as well. We've, as you can see, knocked a bit of crack out of it. So that's that part of the show. We're going to still bring you some top quality rugby analysis. The lads were not very happy with the performance that they saw from Ireland against Georgia. Brian O'Driscoll and Keith Wood cutting through a lot of the BS that you've been hearing over the last few days and getting right to the heart of the conversation. A reminder, of course, OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Enjoy this.
That you had mentioned the ruck last week, so had it improved this week? Not really, then, is the answer.
Not so much, not so much, unfortunately. And it's, I think we had to commit less numbers into the ruck. But even still, I feel there's something in the body fight of the players. I thought there was a concession by players. Yes, we're playing a very hard physical team, and gosh, I'm sure there were sore bodies, on this morning waking up. But the the willingness to go to ground and not fight and look for an extra yard or fight to get to that soft shoulder, give easier targets. There was a few, very few guys that you could honestly say accelerated 100% into the tackle. I thought Chris Farrell on reflection tried his heart out, and it didn't fall for him. He didn't get that many opportunities. He didn't do a whole lot wrong, but at least when he carries with intent. I think some guys are going in almost accepting the physical confrontation, and the knock-on effect is that's going to make your ruck ball much more difficult because you're going to lose the collision. We've got to get more collision winners. Even in those 50-50s, when it's not going your way, you've got to find a way to fight to a soft shoulder, to fight for a second on the ground, to get the long body, to give an access point for your two clearers to come in and blow the opposition away, and then quick ruck ball shifted again. It just felt all a bit stodgy and a bit slow and a bit prescribed.
Keith, Andy Farrell was appointed at the height of the Joe Schmidt regime. He was a continuity appointment. Everybody under that umbrella at the time looked brilliant, and he had, the extra motivational presence, and this was talked about as a very sensible appointment. I don't know that they even talked to anyone else. It was just a fait accompli when it was announced that Joe was moving on. Are you starting to worry about this now? I mean, this is not good.
No, look, there's a couple of things in that. For one, I think you should always interview people for jobs. I always think it's a little bit difficult when you name it very early. When Joe announced he was going pretty early, I think it makes it difficult. When you know there's a successor already in place, my God, your last year has to be great because you're going to take over from it. I think some of the issues Brian was talking about, this, I was trying to interject there in the middle of it, but I couldn't get a gap, Brian. You talk an awful lot of words there. When Joe, the last year of Joe Schmidt, some of that attention to detail was unravelling a little bit, and it was partly unravelling because the bigger teams were targeting us in the manner in which we were playing, and were looking for chinks in that style of play that Joe had. And there was a very high attention to detail, and it was incredibly focused, and it was also incredibly structured. And it had been incredibly structured for a good few years. So the query that I had for this, and I'd like Brian to answer it because I think you have more experience, well, obviously since you played under Joe, is that when you have a new coach and he doesn't have that view, does it take a long period of time for players? They may wish to have a lighter touch, but they've been used to being told where to go and what to do. And for me, I'm looking at the team and there seems to be a distinct sense of uncertainty. And you know that if you're not certain about something, that's the time when you might catch the ball to your chest, or that's the time where you may kind of not quite throw yourself into the ruck or whatever. And at some times when that happens, you just want for it to be simple, to know your job, do your job very well. I feel when I'm looking at it, when I see the team being a bit flat, I feel as if they're thinking their way through things. Well, there's no time and space in international rugby to think your way through it. There's very few players have that time on the ball, and we look as if we're a little bit hesitant with it. I'm just wondering, Brian, whether you think that some of the players that have been conditioned, conditioned to play the way Joe wanted, that now that that condition is gone, are they struggling with the freedom?
Maybe so. I think you have to remember as well that it was a real strength of Joe in the early years, playing 4 or 5 phases power plays when it was new to the game where not many other teams were doing it, until teams discovered in England probably the first to leave us to all the first 3 or 4 rucks don't contest until you see that punch play happening. And then Ireland will kind of run out of ideas if they don't make that line break after the 4th or 5th contact. So it's hard to know. I been brutally honest, Keith. I'm not sure that should they have the ability to learn conditioning, a different type of conditioning quite quickly as professionals? Yes, they should. Are they doing things slightly different than the national team at their provinces? Yes, all 4 of them are. So I do feel as though, I don't think it's an excuse that you can go, oh, we were doing this for 6 or 7 years and we were so programmed to do it. It's very hard to take new messaging. I think that's, possibly a bit of a cop-out. I think you have to be able to listen and, take on new information and look at incorporating it relatively quickly at the highest level. It's pretty unforgiving, international rugby, and if you're not able to take information on, tends to mean that you're not going to be there for the long haul. So I don't know. It's a strange situation. I just feel as though when it comes to the ruck that they've taken their eye off the ball a little bit. I think they're trying to focus on evolving the phase, the multi-phase, which we see more of. Obviously now there's less of a focus. Yes, win your set piece, but talking about multi-phase and creating, slow ruck ball into fast ruck ball and how you can get your mismatches and so on. I think there's been a real focus of that heads-up rugby, but they've taken their eye off winning those rucks, and as a result, you don't get the ball in phase 5, you don't win ruck 4. So, it's a lesson in that I think you've got to make sure that you have those non-negotiables sorted every single test match, because it's a battleground, test rugby, against any side in the world, be it England, be it Georgia. They are going to contest. If they feel you're vulnerable there, they're going to go even harder.
So in a sense, we're going to have to get back to basics. If the set piece isn't working, and it's patently not, the passing has slipped, the breakdown's not working, the heartbeat of the game, all of that stuff, all the boring basics that Joe Schmidt in his pomp had this side very, very good at, they have all dramatically slipped. And over here, meanwhile, the multi-phase game plan, strategy, whatever phrase you want to use, hasn't really blossomed at all. So what are we left with? Not much.
Well, I think they've slipped, but I also think some of the players have got older. Some of the players have retired. We're not dealing with exactly the same group of people that that we were used to, that did very well, especially in 2018. But I do think there's nothing wrong with actually going back to brass tacks and making certain that you have the ball for a period of time. Now, we had the ball for a huge amount of time against England, and we didn't do anything with it. We were never exposed at any stage with the ball until such time as we kicked it away, and then England kind of took their chances when they had to. But I don't know. I think I'd rather see that level of attention to detail. And for me, it's whether those things happen. Like, we've had this conversation often, Joe. Which one comes first? Is it that attitude that for some reason it isn't that they're not up for the game, but they're not at a million miles an hour for whatever reason? Is that first? And if that isn't right, then the mistakes happen afterwards. Or do the mistakes lead to a dropping of that level of attention? That's where we get it. So it's just, look, we're frustrated, but there's parts of this that I feel we're kind of over-egging it too. I mean, but because it's very hard to get overly excited about Georgia and that sounds dreadfully dismissive of them, but it's very hard to get overly excited for this tournament as well. And we know that a far more important tournament is the one that will happen immediately after Christmas, and we know that the Heineken Cup will be incredibly important in a couple of weeks' time, and we want to see an awful lot more from this very fractured season. But I've looked at all the rugby, it's amazing actually, because you're at home. I've been watching rugby day and night when it's been on. Very little of the rugby is exciting, by the way. Everything has become a kick fest, and it's as if everybody's taken the opportunity to spend more time off the training field looking at what can be done to stop other teams, and it's not exciting. It's not entertaining, by the way.
But Keith, I think where I'm frustrated in the last couple of weeks, and particularly at the weekend, there was space to be had.
There is space, yeah.
Particularly where there wasn't that hard press, and when they found tight 5 getting lost after phases 4 or 5. We just, that the McCluskey no try was actually brilliantly manufactured. They went to the width, they played to a pod out the back, and 2 really good quality passes. Okay, Stockdale's was ruled to have gone forward, but his pass that he received from Burns, and then, he threw a big 15-metre, and that sort of width had them in all sorts of trouble, and I couldn't understand why we didn't see more of it. The other thing that it's frustrating me about the team, and I've seen it over the last couple of weeks a lot, is they've a bit of an obsession with getting to kind of 10 metres from the touchline, then going back to the 3-man pod, hitting the middle guy, sometimes a tip on, got to be lucky to not under-resource that ruck, but also then coming back, sweeping down the blind side where the defence has just stood up and are ready to make another hit. The whole thing about playing rugby at any level is you have to exhaust the defence, and you don't exhaust them by just making tackles. They have to make tackles and move to a different space. And that's where you get your mismatches. You've got to work them around the corner. And I think Ireland are playing into the opposition's hands at times by zigzagging at times into spaces where guys are going, oh, they're coming back down my channel again, and throw a shot in. And I think that's the frustration, because there's no joy to be had down those spaces. Work to the open side, and if they overfold, then you can get your sweeps. But you've got to make them work in the first place, and I don't think Ireland are doing that at the moment.
Did we not kick too much yesterday? And when we get into the 22, I think a Grover is a very good option, but you want it to stay into play. You don't want it to go into touch. I thought
the kicking in our 22, or that's, if you're going to kick, you've got to kick to regather. And it's funny, someone like Jacob Stockdale, who's had an awful lot of success with the chip and chase. Sometimes when it's in your armoury and it's worked really well for you, it's your go-to. But 3 times he kicked the ball dead or turned the ball over, and in a brilliantly attacking space, where you either hold on to it or you execute a little bit better. And that's just a concession of possession over to the opposition, get them out of jail. I think it's about shot selection as well, of knowing when to pull the trigger on those moments and when to keep the ball in hand. He's one of the most devastating runners we have with ball in hand. He doesn't realise the punch that he packs. Hold on to the ball, recycle it. Let's use our 2-on-1s, small things. And I think there is too much of a focus now as well, going on, turning the defence. That wasn't necessary against the Georgians. That may be necessary against England. But the line speed isn't so horrific against Georgia, that you have to constantly turn them that way. We could have played with an awful lot more ball in hand, I thought.
There was a point Andy Farrell made when he took over the job, and he was asked, what's your vision for the team? If you pick something that you're really striving for. And he cited Croke Park and the English game, which, is fair enough, but it seemed more about personality and attitude as opposed to outthinking an opponent or loads of detail. He was talking about those quintessential values of Irish rugby. And at the time, look, you don't want to read too much into any of this stuff, but I kind of thought, okay, it's seems like we've outgrown that a touch. And, post-French game, he talked about how the team went into their shells, and it was clearly something they had messaged all week, because Robbie Henshaw the same night talked about how, we talked this week about not going into our shells, and we did that. Again, it's vague. And he was asked yesterday what happened, and he said, we didn't have the courage of our convictions. And again, you know what he means, but it doesn't amount to a hill of a beans in terms of rigorous analysis. If I'm a player and it's going into my shell, or it's courage in my convictions, I'm not seeing specifics there. And of course, behind the scenes, they're going into more detail, I'm sure, but we're not seeing improvements. We're having pretty similar conversations week on week on week. We're not looking for everything to arrive fully formed in his first year in the job. It can't. But could you say, either of you, and I hate to throw 2 questions to people and questions to 2 people on Zoom, but could you say any aspect of Ireland's play has improved since his first game in charge? Maybe that's a way of putting it.
Okay, firstly, Joe, if I can just jump in, I hope we never outgrow that idea of passion and elements.
But Keith, that's my point is that's the starting point. That's a given. I'm not. That. You know what I mean? If we're striving for what we're going for, that is a starting point, and that's everyone accepts that.
I'm saying that the times when we don't understand that we need to bring an emotional level to the game are often games where we struggle and have struggled in the past. So I'm saying that should always be the fundamental. It won't win you games. It doesn't win games. You need all the skills and all the other stuff with it. But because of the size of people that we are, if we don't bring that to the games, often we suffer. And we have consistently suffered when we kind of almost take certain things for granted. I think it's partly why we're not very good favourites. We only have been good favourites maybe for 1 year. But to answer your question as to whether we've seen an improvement in how we play, I would say we haven't seen an improvement in how we play. And I would see that we are, the word I use is uncertainty, and we don't look very comfortable. And that comes from the fact we're playing against a team that are ranked well below us. a team that we have habitually just put to the sword. And I don't think we were going to struggle to win the game, and I don't think we ever struggled to win the game, but I thought there was a huge amount of opportunities and space for us to show what we were capable of, and the lack of certainty or confidence or whatever it is meant we didn't show it.
I think defensively we've been good.
Okay.
Okay, we got ripped apart by a couple of some great tries against France, but I think, and you look at the amount of possession we had against England, and again a brilliant individual try we succumbed to. But for the most part, I think it's been pretty decent. We conceded one try at the weekend. Didn't do a whole lot wrong. I think we just got caught ball watching. Tyke Byrne got caught ball watching, didn't see the runner coming short, getting a little bump on him, and that's the difference between him making that tackle and falling off on him. And actually, while we're talking about that, it's funny. People are scathing of Jacob Stockdale and his decision to stay off. I actually think he probably made the right call. I think if he committed to the 13. Who had a support player in his number 9, right on his shoulder. If he committed to him, it felt as though it was going to be a certain try. I think Jacob looked at where Billy Burns was and he felt, do you know what, there's a fighting chance that Billy Burns will actually get there and make some sort of tackle, so I'll hedge my bets and trying to close off the certain try. Now, the rules are always make them make the pass, but I think that situation actually, the more you look at it and rewind, I think Stockdale got it right. Unfortunately, Billy Burns didn't get a finger on Kev Ladsey, who had an outstanding game, it should be said, and it was a brilliant individual try, but I wouldn't be blaming Jacob in that instance personally.
Okay, interesting. And so defence has improved. Anything else?
I don't think so, to be honest with you. I'm going through everything. You think about the things that have regressed. The quality of passing. The ruck has been good. Our kicking game has been erratic. I think it's been pretty average. There's been some really good stuff and then some very average stuff as well. So we've seen some potential players coming on. I know that that's not improving, parts of the game. We got some new guys breaking onto the scene. So I think I'm trying to grasp at some positives here, and I'm excited at the prospect of the likes of Shane Daly now. I think he's got a lot more tests in him. Haven't seen a 15-minute cameo from him.
Okay. Sorry, Keith, you were trying to get in there?
Yeah, no, I think we bloated a lot of players. That was the point I was trying to say. And I think there might be a few more that we'd like to get in there. I wonder, Brian, I was going to ask you as the centre again, whether we should do with and could do with another playmaker in the centre, because too consistently we seem to have been more aggressive and bosh up. I know we have more subtlety definitely when Ringrose is playing, but whether we should have a sort of 10-12 skills axis or not, or whether that would suit us or not.
Well, I'm excited at the prospect of seeing what Kieran Frawley is capable of doing with Leinster over the course of the rest of the year. He looks probably a little bit lightweight still for international, and he's got to prove himself. But he looks as though he's got something. He's got the potential that someone like Noel Reid showed in his early days, but never properly fulfilled. I think Frawley definitely has that, and I think he has the potential to really kind of bring it on to the next level. He's the thinker of the game. It's always good, a guy, playing that has played 10, playing at 12 as well. And the fact, I just don't see, as much as I thought Farrell tried really hard and showed nice subtle hands for the Billy Burns try, I thought having two centres that seem a bit more one-dimensional than the likes of, balance of Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose, or Henshaw and Gary Ringrose. It'd be very exciting to see a Frawley and maybe a big centre, or even a Frawley and a Gary Ringrose in there, because at the moment I just feel as though we're easy to read. And players have been calling for Stuart McCluskey, and yes, he's played really well for Ulster for the last couple of seasons, but if people know you're coming hard at them and that's what your game is, Test match rugby is so different to European rugby and Pro 14. You just do not get to impose yourself the same way, and so you have to have multiple strings to your bow. And I think you get found out at the top level if you're not capable of mixing your game up and showing lots of different hands. So I think there is probably a need to dabble and look forward to seeing what the capacity of the team is and how they would grow if they did have a playmaker in the 12 jersey too.
So Keith, just to round off this chat and state the obvious to bring it to a close, a win this weekend against Scotland feels very important for Andy Farrell, just to calm everything down for the next 2 months. Otherwise it'll be a long 2 months.
Yeah, I think it will, but I'd go back to one of Brian's earlier points. I think I'd like to see us perform.
As well, okay.
And that performance goes to a win. I think if we win by etching out a win in this competition and we haven't shown that we have progressed or we've got a level of proper continuity in how we're trying to play, I think we wouldn't be overly happy with that either. But if we take this and knock this on its head and say, okay, at the end of this we figured out some guys aren't good enough, some guys are worth a bit of an effort again, some guys are nearly over the hill but not quite there, can we get a bit more out of them for the next year? Who are the changes that are going to happen afterwards? I think we could all look back and be relatively happy. But that's an awful lot of big ifs.
Yeah, OK. And before we go, very quickly, just to mention, David Nucifora was speaking to the media today. So the headline news would be around contract negotiations, which, according to Nucifora, are not going to start this side of Christmas. We have estimated about 90 players out of contract in June, including some headline acts: Johnny Sexton, Tyke Furlong, Peter O'Mahony, CJ Stander, Keith Earls, Cian Healy, Ian Henderson, all out of contract at the end of the year. Nucifora, I guess understandably, was saying we need some financial clarity first before we negotiate 2- and 3-year contracts, Keith. And on the players abroad situation, there'll be no change in that policy. He said, position we're in at the moment is the position we've been in all along. If players choose not to play the rugby in Ireland, it's unlikely is the word he uses, unlikely we would select them. So that's the latest from the RFU. Nothing too surprising about that.
No, I would agree with that position because I think it gives us a better chance of keeping our players back in Ireland and keeping the strength of the provinces, which we absolutely need. That's where an awful lot of the support comes through. I think it could be a very tough time for the contracting. I think it'll be very hard to look for similar type contracts when the amount of money that's in the game has fallen off a cliff. And I think there could be some really, really difficult conversations. I also think it might lead to a few guys leaving and going overseas. And if that happens, I think at this stage you have to kind of say, so be it. I think you want the provinces to keep as much of what they possibly can. The only thing I would ask for in this instance is that if some of our senior players decide to go over to France or England or whatever, that we make certain that we bring through academy players into the system and not get run-of-the-mill guys from overseas. And that is something that is unbelievably important. I'm really happy to get World Cup winning players coming in and playing, but I want to make certain that all the young guys get an opportunity, that they see a pathway to go and play for the province and to play for the country, and I hope that that happens.
OK, fellas, we're right out of time. Thanks so much, Brian O'Driscoll, Keith Wood. Thanks a million.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, your Mo supported our frontline workers this Movember.